Bonjour, y'all. Porosaurus here from Porosaurus's Used Car Emporium. Well, turns out a car dealership was a bad investment during a global pandemic that requires people to stay at home and drive less. So I was drowning my sorrows in a combination pizza place, fried chicken joint, and laundromat, and I thought to myself, well, this here is quite the business idea. So I stole it. Come on down and get all you want at Porosaurus's all-you-can-eat PUBG diner and buffet and get your fill of the best that the Americas have to offer. If you got 20 bucks, then we'll let you in the door to pig out. And if you got 40 bucks, we'll even let you use the good bathroom. And you're gonna need it, believe you me, because we got quite the lineup. Now, in my opinion, there is no better way to start off a meal than with something char grilled. So we've got the Guadalajara gas cans out back, lighting fires early and running away hot. Now, you're gonna want an extra big glass of milk to cool your mouth down after you get some of what these boys are cooking, because they have no chill and don't show any signs of slowing down. Now, a creche translates to the nursery, and that's just what this dish serves up. Some young talent striking off on their own came up with this recipe, and they already have a Sparky, who's one of the best players in the world. But in this tournament, we'll find out if they can win the crown. Now, maybe you're some kind of crazy badass lunatic that wants to burn your gosh dang mouth off. Well, then you've got to try our spicy fish. Now, don't confuse this hot new creation with the cold leftovers. This fish came together from some of the best parts of other teams, and they are setting our customers' mouths and butts on fire. Their first day in group stages, this super team almost broke 100 points. So be warned, these spicy fish aren't for the weak of heart. Step it up if you want to take on the spicy fish. Now, generally, the restaurant experience is you start off mad because you're hungry, but then you stuff your face and feel content. Well, this dish might walk you through that whole process backwards. With Enrage Gaming, they don't plan on letting you accomplish what you want. Now, why would we serve a dish like that? Because we're not cowards. Are you? Up next, we've got the sweethearts of PGIS, Zenith. Now, the roster has seen some changes, but Shinbo and Poonage are looking to repeat their dominant kill performances that led them to a huge second-place win in PGIS. Now, doesn't that sound good? Are you still hungry? Of course you are! How about some 303 Esports? These brash young men from Brazil aren't messing around, and their goal is to take turtle soup off the menu. Sounds like a plan to me. Vencedor, chicken dinner. Speaking of chicken dinners, we've listened to your feedback, and we are happy to announce that we are adding even more chicken dinners to our menu. Now, if you want that chicken, there is no better place to go than Oath. They just recently added a little Kickstarter spice, and this slightly tweaked recipe is just what the doctor ordered. Now, 22 Esports is a Portuguese esports organization, and also in this video, a delicious dish that we serve in my buffet diner. How about 22 portions of Raji Wow? Yes, please. When the food starts flying, you gotta dodge. These guys have been raring to go for months now, and they are aiming to make a mess in the Masters. So you better duck, dip, dive, or open your mouth and catch some flying food. You know you want to. Now, Argentinian steak is some of the best steak I've ever had in my life, and Endurance Esports are as rare as they come. These young men are bringing the realness and not tolerating any foolishness, so if you order them well done, we're just going to kick you right the hell out of the restaurant. Now, great cooking is about experimentation, and everyone knows the fast path to improving your North American PUBG squad is adding an Australian. But what if you were an Aussie team that added 2 North Americans? Get wild and try our exciting 300 dish to find out. Spoiler, it works well. Oh, you thought that was a good move? Well, guess what, sucker? You're in check. These guys are making big brain 5D chess moves every single game, and that's exactly the way I like my meals. Smart. I like smart food. Very easy to eat so you don't choke, because no one chokes here. Don't listen to that Steve over at the fake news station. Now, if you need more iron in your diet, then chow down on some STK. To no one's surprise, the Iron Men of PUBG North America are back once again, and they made a roster change in PGIS and hope that that will enable them to be able to steal the crown away from their mortal enemy, the Sonics. Now, around this point during your dining experience, you might start feeling a little bit full. And that's when I'll come out and inspire you to eat more by yelling right in your face. And it'll feel just like old times, which also happen to be a great team from Brazil who plan on bringing their A game to the finals. From old times to young kings, we've got it all. The young kings are coming in hot and will serve up some delicious bullets and grenades for you to feast upon. It will be a very regal experience. And finally, the soup du jour, the current two-time PCS champions coming fresh off their PGIS championship win, the dish that makes the homies say, oh, and the girlies want to scream, the Sonics. Now, if you're here because you want to try the best, well, by all measurable counts of late, these boys are at the tippy top. They show up big when it counts, and that's very possibly what we are going to see here once again. So make sure you come on down and fill your face with some scrum-diddly-umptious food. And if you see that no-good SOB health inspector on your way in, sock him one in the mouth for me. This ain't a science lab, clean room, or whatchamacallit. This is a restaurant, and we're getting down and dirty in here. Yum, yum, eat up, baby. It's ESL PUBG Masters Americas.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're watching around the world. It's time for ESL PUBG Masters Americas. My name's Toffees, and I have the unfortunate job of following Porosaurus to open this thing up. So without further ado, let's pull in two big brains we've invited here today to bring the action, to break it down, to give you the strats. It's Clover, it's Cameron. Welcome, guys. Cameron, how you doing?
Doing great. I'm excited to see this thing pop off. We've had multiple weeks of qualifications from NA and Latin America, but they've been isolated the entire pathway through. Finally, we get down to the best 8 of both sub-regions, and it's going to be an explosive clash.
Nice. Clover, how are you doing today?
I mean, I agree with Cammy. We've been really waiting for this. The moment that the Americas was announced, the coming together of NA and LATAM, wanting to see how the best of each of these regions go up against each other, I'm absolutely excited.
It is going to be about these two regions battling it out. Let's take a quick look at how they got here, the format that brought us to this point. 64 teams in each region, 128 of them dropped out of the plane in round 1, and ultimately through fights, through different styles of play, through crazy days, 16 got here, 8 from North America, 8 from Latin America, 6 days of play, 24 maps. Each day is going to be a best of 4. It's going to be a ton of fun. They're playing those games because they need to earn points. How do the points work, Cameron?
It's a good old super system. 10 points for first place, 1 point for each kill. Same system we've had for the past year and a half, 2 years at this point, I think, if not longer. We all know and love it. These teams have been playing on it for the longest time. There are some that you could call as like actual experts and masters of this system at this point. And so we get 6 whole days more of this amazing action.
So at this point, what do you need the points for? Walk me through the prize pool, Clover.
I mean, we've got a $50,000 prize pool here for the ESL Masters Americas. First place is going to walk away with $12,500, but all 16 teams are going to get something in the bag. Even 15th and 16th place still will get $500. But obviously, you want to get the most that you can, and you know, there's a couple other things on the line as well.
12.5K buys a lot of spicy fish if you're into sushi. All right, let's talk about what else we're playing for here, Cameron. It's not just about the points, the money. Those are big, but there's something else on the line this year that I think could really come into play. What is that?
Glory? Greatness? No, it's PGC points. Yeah,
Okay.
PGC that's coming up at the very end of the year. And so all of these 4 major events, ESL Masters, PCS, etc., will be qualifying points. And it does start smaller than it ends. But still, get those points early. Get those points start stacking up right now. Because hopefully it's really at the very end of the year, that international event that's going to be happening is probably the biggest thing to happen this entire year. So you want to qualify for it.
A lot is changing this year, and if you're a point-centric team, now might be nice to get a little bit of a buffer in those PGC point tanks. But who's playing for the points? Let's take a look at the 16 teams that will be taking the field. Clover, when you look at this list, any of them pop out and smack you in the nose?
Enraged. Enraged walked away from the group stage with the most amount of points from any team in any region, and that is at 151. They dominated in killing. They were comfortable on both maps. Like, this is a team to watch.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with that anymore. Cameron, what do you stand out here when you look at it?
I'm outside of the obvious answers from North America of STK, Sonics, Oath. We have Spicy Fish, we have 300, and Dodge as well. So we have a couple of teams that are either new faces or sort of surprise qualifiers. So it's going to be really interesting to see if those are just flukes or if we're going to see them continue to deliver greatness over the course of these entire 2 weekends.
Absolutely. Let me ask you real quickly about Zenith, Clover. Zenith is second place coming out of PGIS, but there's been some massive changes. This is not the same Zenith that we were hanging out a month ago.
No, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing either, because they've probably brought on one of the best fraggers. You know, as Roth left, went to go to Spicy Fish, there was a bit of an opening, and Kickstart kind of coming into that roster. And, you know, we've seen him take on a 1v5 at the end of a game and get the victory. So it's really somebody that you want to have on your team. And thus far, in terms of group play, they've had some pretty fantastic games.
I look forward to seeing if they step up or if they end up feeling the wrath of Spicy Fish. We'll find out soon because the games are about to start, but they start on a couple of different maps. It's not one map all day. It's 4 maps today. Talk to me a little more about the maps we're playing and if that matters to these teams, Cameron.
So we have Miramar and Erangel on both days. That's not out of the blue. Usually we do start on Erangel, which starting on Miramar, I don't want to lean too heavily into this. However, we do want to note that Sonics coming out of the international champions, they were already the champions of NA throughout 2020. That is undeniable. They won PGIS, but they advanced from groups in 8th place, which is it's new and interesting. And the fact that they got the vast majority of their points from Erangel alone, we start on Miramar. If they continue to struggle on this map, it could show a little gap for other teams to try and fill and take first place. I will say, I talked to Shrimsy, and he says that they just played overconfident after the first couple of games, so they blame it on their own play, and they're fully confident that they can continue to be the team that we know and love as the best team in North America. But we have Miramar starting things out.
I like that you said, what did you say, new and interesting. I would call it shocking and unacceptable. Let's see if they turn that. I expect better from the guys who came out of PGIS in first place. Let me ask you this about them, and there probably going to be a lot of conversation here about these guys. Clover, Zampa is standing in. He's substituting for the Sonics. Do you think that has anything to do with their improved performance on Erangel, or is it a statistical anomaly, as Cameron sort of puts out there, that they seem to struggle on their favorite maps during the rounds?
I think it can be a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that Zampa hasn't been around through some major changes in terms of meta and just the way that the game is now since he's been with PUBG Esports in a competitive level. That said, I think that thus far he's had a really strong showing for the team. He's really found fragging opportunities, but something just isn't working, especially, I think, as Cam even said, on their Miramar game. So coming out with the Miramar heavy match to start, they definitely want to show right off the bat that, hey, group stages was a fluke. We're back here to be at the top and we're here to frag out.
All right, so we've talked about Zampa. He's back. Tempo Storm, sort of resurgence moment here. Remember, they were the back-to-back-to-back North American champions back at the MPL period. Cameron, somebody else from that team who is in play and has the new roster. We mentioned Zenith very briefly, but it is a young roster. I'm curious to your perspective of Maluk and how he handles this very young, very aggressive team.
So yeah, having Maluk there with Punit, Shimboy, and Vegas for heading the Zenith roster was something that I think I don't want to say caught off guard, but Kickstart leaving the roster was a really big blow to them, I think. However, Punit and Shimboy, they showed power in PGIS and even the PCS leading up to it to be able to deliver those numbers, even though it was Roth and Kickstart that were at the top of those scoreboards, leaderboards. And so far through group stage, Maluk seems to be leading these boys in a very, very positive way. Their rotations do actually remind me of old school 2019 dominant Tempo Storm. When you compare that to Maluk's previous roster of the hard shifts, that it's night and day, shall we say. They look like focused. They know exactly where they need to go. We don't have those matches where they sort of are driving around and just driving it to death game after game after game. I don't necessarily know what the difference is, but so far Zenith look like a really good roster despite losing 2 core pieces of their unit.
All right, I'm going to do predictions in just a second, but I know, Clover, you wanted to touch on Oath for just a minute before we get into that.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been talking about the group stages, PGIS, but in terms of scrims this week, Oath have been really dominating. I know you can't really hold scrims against teams. It's really when a lot of them kind of take a step back and work on things. But for Oath to have such a strong showing, I earlier got a little bit excited, said Kickstart in terms of Zenith. My brain is just going backwards. We've had so many roster shifts, but Kickstart on that with roster really fragging out. I think where a lot of us were worried what would happen with Pat leaving and if they were still going to find those scoring opportunities. But at least right now, it seems to be the case.
Well, let's see who has the best scoring opportunities. Predictions. I want to know not who wins this game, who wins the whole thing. Who hoists the 12-5 at the end of this bad boy. Give me your pick, Clover. Who wins it all?
Spicy Fish.
Really? Okay.
I'm feeling it. I'm feeling that honeymoon on the roster right now.
I love the honeymoon idea. Cameron.
Listen, I think Spicy Fish are a really strong roster. There's a big possibility that they can come out hot and be in the front of the pack.
Yep.
But I think over the course of 2 weekends, I still have to lean onto Sonics. I mean, at some point we have to call that this is their era because they seem to be winning everything, and I'm not going to look away from them before that's officially ended.
I like it. I like that we've got Sonics. I like that we've got the Spicy Fish. I'm going to pivot away from North America. I'm going to pick Enrage. They've done some cool things in the Latin American region. They're fun to watch. And I don't think we'll see as many hot drops here. I think everyone's going to focus on their game, and Enrage could really catch a lot of people off guard. It's exciting. I'm excited. I hope you're excited. Guys, everyone watching, it is time to get this thing started. The plane is getting ready to go to the air, and we've got 2 casters who are going to make this thing happen. It is Matchroom and Godspeed with the call. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Toffees and crew. Matchroom, Godspeed, together at last to bring you some North America versus Latin America action. Finally getting the merge into full effect. I've got my eyes on Creche. Godspeed, what you looking at?
Crescia, that's definitely a good team. Yeah. Obviously, Sparking being on that team is, you always want to look at any team that he's a part of. But yeah, I think this is really exciting. Looking at the 8 teams that qualified from Latin America, and then we obviously have our 8 teams. There's been a lot of roster shuffles going on around, man. It's not to pun it up, but Spicy Fish is obviously one of the teams that I'm looking at. It's going to be a spicy day. You know what I mean? God, I hate that I just did that.
See,
I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
I know, spicy is one of my
go-to,
go-to, dude. Spicy is one of my go-to phrases, and now it's kind of like taken. What I find interesting is the amount of people that are talking about Spicy Fish and not so much Shoot to Kill.
Yeah,
that's a very pride-driven team, and you know that that's going to, if anything, just further motivate them to just take the war on the battleground.
Also, I mean, just looking at our analyst picks, right? Like Clover and Cammy obviously picked North American teams, but neither of them were SDK, which in the past, SDK has been kind of one of the teams that everyone's been looking at. But Sonic's obviously coming off of that huge PGIS win. SDK not, placing as well as they would have wanted to. And Spicy Fish, being a team that came in and started kind of dominating, as we said, scrims are kind of subjective, but overall it should be a really exciting game. And the Latin American teams, man, they are no joke and they are here to play. So overall,
dude,
let's get into it, man. Let's get into it.
I love it. Like, okay, North America is known for being a very action-packed region, but LATAM takes it up a couple more notches. You know what I mean? They're like, if you just shoot their direction, they'll be like, I'm going to kill you for that. And they will do it. And it's almost like watching a whole bunch of the Guadalajara gas cans just roam around. Now, that being said, we are getting the first rounds today, so that means that they tend to be a little bit slower, so don't worry, guys. The action will mount up as it goes. Everybody's just got to get a feel for each other first. That being said, do you think that there's going to be any contested drop locations that we're looking at? Any specific regions that we should be looking at? Since we are starting on Miramar, sometimes that can lead to a little bit of interesting starts.
I'm not exactly sure we're going to see too many hot drop situations, considering as well in scrims, a lot of the Latin American teams have already kind of switched up the positions. As Cammy and Poro, you guys have been watching scrims as well. So I don't know if we'll get any really hot drop situations, but I definitely feel that the Latin American teams are going to get very aggressive very early. That's kind of been their style. That's what they like to do. And North America is pretty much going to do what North America does, which is just potentially rotate in slow. Maybe a few of them die in rotation as we're so used to, but I'm actually really excited to see how some of these new rosters play out, specifically Zenith. I think Maluk and Vegas, that's a really interesting combo for me.
There are so many new fun rosters that we're looking at, but one that continues to draw my eye back is going to be our PGIS champions, Sonics.
Sure.
Having to bring in Zampa, who is Tempo Storm and just a solid North American player. I mean, let's be honest, Tempo Storm won everything in the NPL, and then now Sonics are like, hey, we just got done winning PGIS. Let's go ahead and bring him in. What type of pressure are these players under to perform in this type of situation?
I mean, there has to be some pressure for sure for the 3 members of that roster who had, coming off of an international, title. That being said, knowing Zampa as long as I have and competing against him, God, he was so obnoxious to compete against. He's always been one of the most talented players in our region. And so for him, even though, yeah, sure, he hasn't, been playing this game that actively, specifically in like a competitive capacity, I still think Zampa is going to come in and he's going to make an impact on this team or on any team you put him on simply because of the pedigree that he has and just because of the talent that he has. I mean, Zampa's nuts. So it may take him a little bit of time to maybe get back in the swing of things, but overall, I think, I'm not really worried about him or that roster.
You're not swinging that quote by me. You're going back, oh, Zampa's nuts. I heard the original Zampa's obnoxious, and that's what I'm going to make sure everybody remembers. He's obnoxious
to play against. He's obnoxious to play against because he was very good. Okay, let's not get it twisted. Let's not get it twisted. But we're in the game now, Matt. And as I thought, I don't really see us having any crazy hot drops.
Yeah, I mean, this playing path is just simple, easy. Everybody's just making the drops to grab their vehicles early. Sonics over around Picado getting their early control positioning. No surprise there if you've been watching any PUBG in recent history. A little bit of an exchanges going on. Really just people taking shots at vehicles rotating away. But if you hear something in the distance, it's not anything too spicy just yet. But maybe our circle might be able to provide some fun for us. Oh, Shrimsy, he's got a line up on 303 trying to go for a drop.
Never seen him hit
doesn't
those,
get
actually.
that.
Yeah,
No, never.
I mean, those shots are so fun.
One day, dude. I just want to see it. I just want to see the drop and the sadness. Like, especially if we had player cams whenever it happened. Could you just imagine the of dying before you even touch like the ground?
I don't know if it would be a sigh. It would probably be someone hitting their desk or just getting really upset. But I mean, we saw something like that happen, I believe, in PGIS. I can't remember if it was T1 or if it was Genji. One of the members got picked off in the air. So it does happen. It's not common, but here we are, 303, now with a Latin American roster. Last time we saw 303 actually was the North American roster. And that is a
circle.
So, Matt, a lot of the west side, I don't know if you can see this, is pretty unplayable terrain right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even technically in the map. I think that we used to refer to these as NPL circles. So Latin American players, welcome to the North American meta, where you're going to be playing along this far western, I guess, wall over here. Pozo's inside the circle, Monte Nuevo's inside the circle, even just a touch at Chumacer as well. So, again, we've talked about this circle so much if you've watched North American action. Predominantly north-south rotations, a lot of hillsides. Whenever we're looking at PowerPoints, really, what are you looking for as rotations and what's going to be the next choice that these players are looking at, Godspeed?
This is generally like a north-south rotation for a lot of the teams that are specifically super far outside the circle. So I'm talking like Gas Cans, potentially Oath. Obviously, a team like, Spicy Fish isn't going to move. They're just going to sit in the center. And for all the teams or all the people that have really been a fan of this team, I think this is a great circle for them to start out. Obviously, Dead Center, Monty. Monty is a notoriously tough kind of city to hold. Obviously, you're going to let some teams in, but there's some really good chokes, specifically in like the northwest part of that city, that are hard to get by. So I'm really looking at Spicy Fish to hold down the city or see if they maybe want to migrate potentially a little more north. And I'm also looking at a lot of the teams that are on the outside to rotate in on the north and the south.
Well, one of those notable teams is going to be Zenith, just to the east of Spicy Fish, Monte Nuevo's positioning. You can see very kind of separated right now. Spots themselves a crate that's dropping down. It looks like Poonage might be eyeing out that one, but there is going to be dodge around that general location as well. We didn't really get a chance to talk about the fact that Dodge has been quite surprising in their setups and play through the stages moving into this, so Zenith might have to be a little bit careful with them, because this is a lot more of an aggressive and kill-heavy Dodge than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a part of that is also, Halo Senpai being, I think their communication is still something they said they were working on, because I think Halo's from CIS. It's got a thick accent, but also, you have Headkick. Two new members that have really come in and done quite a good job for that roster overall. And I think Dodge has definitely looked better than they have in the past.
Early rotators getting the rewards, as you can see. Zenith getting some new toys to play with. Poonage now surveying the horizon that's in front of him, and that's going to be where Dodge was positioning at. The rest of the team's going to be also regrouping right back behind him. Then to the north, we've got a couple of teams that could be rotating, but really it's about the control from this position. We've seen it be quite strong for a lot of these teams. Meanwhile, Spicy Fish, team that we've been talking quite a bit about, is fairly separated out. They still have the Dodge that's kind of encroaching into their territory to the north, But they also have some friends back to the south, and that's going to be Cresce, who is known for having a very aggressive playstyle of their own. Old Times also coming in back behind them, as you can see the setup on the circle right now. Everybody opting into that more centralized location.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I said head kick. I meant Hikerman for dodge. That was my mistake. But yeah, Spicy Fish, they have a really, really nice spread here. I was just going to say, I love Roth's position. He went up to the top part of Monty to loot up there, as well as get some information. And he's leaving without his truck. It's just hanging out here. And here's something else that I just wanted to share with you, Matt. This is one of my favorite things when I was competing, is you'd come across these positions or like places where you need teams would loot or rotate, and you'd find a vehicle like that, and you would just wonder who did that, who was that. In this case, we know it was Roth.
Just abandoned vehicles, more resources just left by the wayside. And where they were seeing positioning at, keep in mind, Spicy Fish has a whole bunch of friends around them. Not in Roth's position, but I mean, he's kind of by himself. But over to the northwest, where the rest of his team is at and that he's trying to go to, means the fact that a lot of the resources, such as vehicles, are already going to be claimed, moved, or already at least have eyes on them. So Roth is going to have a little bit of a difficult situation regrouping with the rest of his friends, but it's not the worst rotation, to say the least. There's a lot of cover to play around, and as he goes, just think of all the 5-5 that he can pick up.
True, and I also want to point out as well, yes, it was really unfortunate that he lost his vehicle, but the fact that they're spread out, you talked about their position, the fact that Spicy Fish is this spread out kind of speaks to me about their confidence in playing this. They know that Monty's going to be a pretty contested area, they know their surrounding areas are going to be as well, and they still are playing with a fairly wide split here. And yeah, I think the only potential problem with their plan is the fact that Roth did lose his vehicle and is probably going to have to get picked up if they even go for him, which it looks like they might send someone. I think it's Sharp to go grab him.
Apologize to anybody if you hear some thunder in the background. We're getting a pretty heavy thunderstorm in my house right now, so just enjoy the soothing sounds of the thunder that could be happening in the background. How dare me not control the weather around me at any given time. I knew I shouldn't have just quit all those magic classes, dude. I knew it.
Look at these rotations, though. A lot of these teams have indeed come in and made it into the circle. No one's really holding out edge, which is quite a difference. We saw some teams early, especially in scrims, camping some of these hotspots, especially that road from San Martin. So not going to happen here, as Shinboy is going to take some shots. 22
have themselves a position to defend from right now, but I was going to say they're not going to stay there long. I do like stopping in that little bit of a defensive dip, taking some retaliation shots back to cover your teammates and really force in this case, Zenith to step away from position. Most teams already kind of posting up inside the circle. You can see it's going to be Old Times looking down into Dodge's position right now. Ronnie's coming up back behind them, and yes, there's a lot of new faces in here, so yeah. I think that's kind of one of the things I love about it. A lot of new teams. It's just invigorating. We're going to see a lot of different play styles and just the potential for a lot of new superstars rising up in this type of merged meta that we're looking at.
Absolutely. I think that's the most exciting thing, even going into this. I feel like this is almost like kind of a preview of what we may see essentially as far as rosters going into like PCS4, for instance, right? And I think that's really exciting as well. The new talent thing you said was absolutely true. Finding new superstars, obviously, it's kind of an amalgamation and a mix right now. We have an old superstar in like Zampa coming back to playing against the new kids. Obviously, Sonics have made themselves superstars after PGIS, so this melting pot of new and old talent, I think, is super great. And Keenan, meanwhile, has found...
That's about the easiest shot you're ever going to see in your life right there. Selfish goes down, Keenan spots that out, and I mean, in check, they have to be very careful now because that's just one of their forward scouts that was trying to get, like, you can tell he was beated in on something and trying to defend his teammates. So
yeah, I think it looked like he was boosting or something. I mean, he was just sitting there getting ready for maybe a rotation, but yeah, Keenan from Spicy Fish taking him out. Selfish going down to Spicy Fish, first kill of the game, kind of meant to be, but yeah, Spicy Fish again. This team is spreading out. They are getting aggressive. I mean, look where Keenan just went to. He very clearly went out of his compound to get that frag, get for information. So again, love the confidence coming out of that team.
See, it's going to be a shoot to kill now, rolling into position, trying to get a little bit of lay of the land that's in front of them at the time. So trying to see if they can get a feel for what's happening in position. So now I have to be a little bit more careful with this one. I like the fact that they've got the vision all the way out of there, getting a little bit more control, but you can see it's going to be Spicy Fish. That is pretty close to how they're going to be approaching this. Could lead into a little bit of a fun situation at the time.
Yeah, and here we are with gas cans. I also want to talk about Oldless and Nikos, who I thought played absolutely fantastically in the last PCS, and they've really come together in this team with Honey Badger. They're going to be very much so on the southeast side, but that shift is actually really nice for gas cans. Obviously perfect for Enrage as well as 300. And yeah, a lot of these teams now are going to have to shift to the south. And the problem is you have two main fork roads, right? One going through Monte and one on the west side of the map. And those are notoriously difficult to rotate through as well, just because of the fact that there's so many different elevations. And Balkan is going to knock his teammate. Unfortunate. It wouldn't be a game of PUBG if we didn't see that, Matt.
But the timing on this one is so bad. All of these teams are stacked up in the north. This is going to be a very difficult rotation. I'm going to stop for a second, get your teammate back up before committing to that rotation. Just stalls out everything so much. You can see a lot of these teams are flanking into the east a little bit. Looks like one of our teams is thinking about making, actually two of our teams, breaching down along that western wall, maybe trying to find an option to work with from that positioning. Teams that are already in strong fortified points, though, have the capabilities of picking up a couple of kills as these rotations come into play. Shoot to Kill being one of those outlier teams. You can see trying to get a little bit more information before they opt in their move. Luke rotating through this one, and couple little firefights happening. It's going to be Oldless that gets spotted out by Vox, and a quick flush as well. 300 holding up the line right up in front of him. Adam's going to go ahead and get the shots onto Leda, get them down onto him. Honey Badger's down in the background for this one. That was a very narrow approach coming out from Adam. Almost went down inside of it. Nikos is back behind this one, but you can see vehicles are just scattered everywhere, leaned up against walls, everything along this positioning, and this is going to be a very careful fight because they do have a couple of referees, teams that are on the outside of this position that are looking into it. Nikos, I believe, might have gotten a little bit more information on where the rotations are coming in for a little bit more defense, but not a lot coming out of that one. And my God, there's a lot going on the other side of this fight. You can see it's InCheck that's finding a couple of kills as well.
Yeah, and this is absolute chaos, but this is a right position to fight for. It's such a good spot in the circle, and obviously both teams fighting for it. It's down to a 2-on-2. Shots coming out. No, he's gonna go down, and Neferhor as well as head kick from 300.
Dude. Is this the kryptonite? Gas cans, the team that's always roaming around trying to get something, trying to get the kills early? You don't fight 300 Spartans when they're entrenched, man. It doesn't work out for you.
Very true. Either way, though, I mean, they pulled up. Gas cans pulled up and did make it a pretty competitive fight. I mean, 300 did lose 2 members, but I also want to shift kind of position over there to Akresh. I mean, I really love the position that they're playing on the high ground of Monty. They've been controlling a lot of teams, having them rotate around, and now we're hopping over to Shoot to Kill in 22.
Leaned up right on the wall from Monte Nuevo. Got to be a little bit careful with this one. No outside really teams that are taking shots at them just yet. They're pretty far to the north, and the only northern team is really at this time. So regrouping and having to contest with the amount of people that are in front of them. Shoot to Kill, leaning into what they know, using the throwables out and tossing the 22's direction, but not connecting. You can see buying a little bit more space, leaning back, leaning into their gunplay, and that means that Rogiwao is actually going to connect into Pinta with a headshot and get the down onto him. Everything's still stalling out, but you can see Luke 12's trying to get a nice little flanked position behind this. If he pops up, he can get a lot of damage into it. I don't know if they're expecting it. Shots do come out. Alo gets it down onto 1, but he goes down as well. 2 members up right now for Shoot to Kill, and they have to play this very carefully. Purdy's off to the side of it. Still 3 members up for 22 right now, trying to figure out if they want to go for this. Looks like they could commit to the res. Both sides going to lean into that one.
Yep.
So now it's everything just slowing down yet again.
This is basically, yeah, there's a hard reset, exactly. Both teams realized that they took a lot of damage. Obviously, SDK got 2 knocked, but I really also like that off angle of Purdy as he's trying to kind of herd 22 or find out what their play is here. As we see 2 members now going to the outside of the wall, and this is a fairly important fight simply because of the fact that whatever team is going to win this fight pretty much controls the north side of the circle.
Yeah, I've seen the circle has popped, and in this area is inside the safe zone. It did move a little bit to the east. So now this fight becoming a little bit more vital as you are the Kings of the North if you win this firefight right now. It's a little bit of back and forth between the two of them trying to line it out. 22 still leaning into their defensive wall. Meanwhile, Shoot to Kill still just trying to play along this tip. Do line up shots, and Luke 12 does connect onto Rogiwao, who's been a key component from this. Can we see any plays coming out of it? Zenith is coming up back behind this. Doesn't have a lot of vision to work with just yet, but this is a very slow boil fight.
Yeah, no, but Zenith's position and moving up is huge because although they don't have vision, they can actually play the top of that hill and completely gatekeep, if not third party, this fight. Pay attention to Zenith's position to see if it actually comes into play here, but this is still going on. Both teams in the circle. There's really no reason at this point for either of them to back off. A lot of damage has been done, and they do need to start thinking about getting this fight over with quick, though.
Look at the amount of utility Yeah, look at the amount of utility that's been thrown down. There's smokes everywhere on the floor right now. I realize that the cost might have been just too high, and Shoot to Kill does not want to commit to this. Instead, they're rolling back into Zenith's position, jumping out. Just going to go ahead and charge this one through. Penta trying to be the point man for this one. Positioning's off to the side. Roth gets a little bit of vision on a different fight right now, but Shoot to Kill does manage to reposition away from this, but got to play this one a little bit carefully. Purdy isn't quite in the most defensive of positions. It looks like 22 also moving back behind this one, but they might be playing a little bit further to the south.
Regardless, I love this play from Zenith. I thought they initially were going to third party, but then SDK pulled off and went for the reposition here, but Zenith was already here. They had already seen that this was the next best position and it was open, and I love the fact that they went there. Beautiful call. But now Luke is going to go down.
Oath has a high ground position pretty far away from this and has vision on it. Gets the down onto one while they're rotating through. Now Luke has an idea on where the setup is starting to play from. Has to play this one carefully. It's just him and Purdy Curdy, the last two up right now, trying to get a little bit more of an idea on what's happening. Spots out one. Doesn't connect with enough damage to make anything of value in that. I don't even think he hit one of the bullets onto it. Just taking a little bit of terrain
There's a
around
member
this
of 22.
position.
There's a member of 22 sneaking up. This is what I was talking about.
Oh, this is going to boil up pretty fast. Finding the angle onto it. Is he going to connect onto the res while this is happening? Luke 12 has gone down. Zenith's starting to get more control over this fight. This is not the start that Shoot to Kill wanted to have.
Oh, that nade. It's going to do some damage. I don't think it's going to do a knock. It is. He actually re-knocks Alo.
Oh, now it is just Purdy, the last one up, having to drop down to his belly, hoping that maybe the firefight that's happening around him and all the people that are coming into third and fourth party might provide a little bit of assistance. But Purdy Curdy now in some trouble with this one. Can't really commit into the res, but gonna go ahead and try for it anyway. You can see Molotov down on one side and Alo trying to feed information, trying to see if anybody's gonna be approaching him from any of these angles. They're just gonna go ahead and stick to the res and hope that they get it off, and they do.
And it's really crazy, Matt, because this is really the only fight happening on the map. All the teams on the south, even the west and east, they've just been kind of chilling. The north is the big story, and that shift is brutal for the teams currently fighting in the north.
Just chasing circles, but if you're a 303 fan, you are super happy right now. Sonic's also inside the safe zone as well. Oath, who's been taking pot shots into this, also doesn't have to move too far. Really, this fight still brewing up. It's the Monte Nuevo kids that are going to have to make some type of play away from these positions, and there are a ton of teams stack up along this. So with this, that means that Shoot to Kill knows the fact that they have to try to play this one for as long as possible, but they're going to have some potential drive-bys coming here shortly.
What's the play here now for SDK? They're down to just two. Yeah. They know they're facing a team of at least three up, especially if they're paying attention to kill three, which I'm sure they have. And they're not even close to circle. I mean, even if they potentially win this fight, they still have to go through two teams that are, potentially three teams that are gatekeeping. And now shots coming out from Punaj. I don't know if they're going to make it, Matt.
Punaj repositioning around this. He's got the cover. Those couple of shots bought him the time to work with. Lines up a grenade. I don't know if that one's going to connect. It's going to be just a touch too far, but it is definitely going to scare Shoot to Kill. Punaj does get the angle onto Alo, gets him down. So now Zenith in firm control over this, slowly and steadily just taking control over every section of it. Nice. There you go.
Well
Shoot
played.
to Kill goes down. While this is happening, we did see Spicy Fish rotate to the north around them, but 22 also hears the firefight. Moved fairly close, but not moving into a threatening position just quite yet.
Oh, but Spicy Fish, I mean, they're kind of just sending it up the hill here. I'm sure they scouted that and knew there's a team there, but they just wanted to get in that. This is a game-winning rotation here. In fact, they've actually gotten underneath the compound that 303 find themselves in a pretty decent spot, but they do have to be careful. There's a lot of sight lines looking down on them, specifically Oath.
Civ is in a lot of trouble. I was going to say too many angles to work with. Young King's on the hunt there, and oh, not going to be able to find it on the other side. It's going to be VH King that's going to find the points for it. So King versus King, and it's going to be the Cresce boys coming up on top.
Cresce boys indeed. And again, looking back at Oath, just peppering Spicy Fish is... I like the fact that they went here. They knew teams were here, but it's just hard. It's hard to hold this. If they can weather the storm, which it doesn't really look like they're doing, they'd actually be in a really good position off the next shift. But yeah, Oath is not going to have any of that. Team coming off the east edge, this is perfect for them. They're just going to take control of this, wipe the teams in front of them, then take over when they need to.
303 is very concerned with Spicy Fish that's down below them and perfectly content to let Oath just kind of help defend their position. You can see that 303 has glanced at Oath several times, doesn't take the shots, and looks back down towards Spicy Fish. So with this, they are allowing Oath to move into a position, but they feel like that's a better threat to deal with than what they have to deal with the team directly underneath of them.
Yeah, and this is often the case as well. I mean, this is what a smart team will do. They'll notice that they have the superior position, especially the 303, right, being in that high ground compound. They don't have to do anything. So realistically, they could either take shots at Oath, or they could just take shots of Spicy Fish, which it seems like they're kind of doing both. But at the same time, it's smart to kind of let one of those opposing teams just kind of wipe each other out. So I do like the way 303 is just kind of playing this, and that shift, so perfect for Oath and 303.
I mean, finds the angle onto Roth, gets the down onto him. Now it's just a matter of, yep, Balefrost has got the angle on the other side of it. Oath has a very firm defensive line that's been, I guess you could say offensive line. It's slowly marching its way to the west and has managed to get a lot of territory out of this. Dodge, meanwhile, looking uphill into 300th position. Finna does go down. Hello Senpai trying to line this one up, but bullets exchanging a lot of damage on both sides. Head kick gets a little bit of assistance inside of this one, so got to find it out. Hikerman trying to make the play on the other side of it, but 303 is still dancing along this hillside, trying to see if they can spot out Hikerman, who's now firmly defended up. Instead, maybe leaning back into the res, but you can see multiple teams eyeing this position. Cresce still looking back into this position as well. So that means that whoever finishes this fight and manages to survive still has to contend with another team in a high ground defended up position after this. And Dodge doesn't even get that chance.
Nope.
Hikerman gets spotted out, and it's going to be Sparking that takes him down.
I love the way Crash plays, Matt. They're so aggressive and they're so smart. Again, they're one of the teams that definitely loves adopting the edge as far as their strategy and how they like to play it. This one, kind of, they were forced to play edge, let's be honest. The circle shifted away. But yeah, they're one of the teams that like to control it and really get aggressive, and that's exactly what they've done. Sparking, though, is going to go down to Shrimzy.
Still got the lineup that's been going on between Zenith and 22 to the north. We're also getting another lineup that's going on between Cresce and Sonics. Back over to the southwest of this position. Two members already down for 22. Zenith looks like they've got the angles to work with, but Shinboy goes down. That's going to be 303's Junior that found a line to work with. Vegas, the last one up now, is now going to have to figure out how he wants to contend inside of it. Going to lean in yet again into that positioning, but Cresce goes down to Sonics on the other side of this. Sonics were in a hold position, often slowly creeping up the hillside, and managed to catch them unaware, get a couple of knocks into it, and it was a straight-up firefight after that Sonics managed to walk away victors.
Yeah, and Sonics have been relatively quiet this game, not because they needed to be, or not because they had to be, just they were taking their time, they were working their position. They lost one member, but yeah, they analyzed the circle, and this is exactly what I'd expect from a team with this much experience, right? Like they took what they needed, the information, and now they're starting to make their push. The problem is that they still have a team in front of them, and circle's closing in quite quickly.
303 with the high ground of everyone. 300 with the high ground over Sonics. Quick couple of bullets back between the two, and now it's just Shrimzy and Tickleton trying to push their way up the hillside. Have to play this one a little bit more careful off of it. 303 does get the down onto Leda at range. Tig still creeping up the hillside, though. Looks like he has an idea on where it could be lined up at. Not going to opt into the full commitment onto this one, so that's going to allow the 300 res. Let's be real, 303 and 300 fighting next to each other is kind of cruel.
It's a little confusing, but that's okay. You know what? We'll deal with it, as 300 did do a good job of wiping almost all of the Sonics as Tig makes it out. And these circles, man, this one in particular is one of my favorites just because we were generally the team that was in the compound, but there's a lot of terrain to work with, specifically even pushing that compound. There's ridges on both the north and south side, potentially even the east side if, Oath decides they want to get really frisky depending on the next shift and they can walk up. But here we have Old Times trying to clear their edge.
I don't think that they know. Roar can do a ton of work into this, but it's going to be, again, the guys up at the high ground taking a couple of shots into it. Head kick has to play this one cautiously. I think the grenade might be a little bit too far. Do you know Tig is still back behind this and can do a little bit of work of his own. Old Times doing a good job of playing inside their dip, but not a lot of information to work with at the time off this one. Tickleton, here's the fight. Wants to get involved into it, seeing if maybe he can get a little bit of a high ground peek into it. Eyeing into head kick's positioning, not going to spot him out just quite yet. That little bit of a dip that head kick is playing into, but hey, he spots out everybody on Old Time stepping up, managed to get the down onto one, seeing if maybe he can line up another one, but no, 300's going to go down inside of this. Tig has an opportunity to work with, but not a lot of information, so instead, having to see if maybe he can stall it out just a touch more. The smoke's denying all information for him, and he really wants to try to pick up these kills, but cannot find the angle to work.
Yeah, the problem is he knows there's two knocked, but again, like you said, he can't do anything about it. The smoke's coming out. On the other side, though, Oath did decide to actually get aggressive early and push that east side of that compound 303 is in.
Oh, Tig trying to survive the utility that's been being thrown out. Old Time still just chaining into the reses. Tig Goes for a little bit of a peek, takes a smidgen of damage off of it. Still has to be cautious. The team's coming up back behind him. You can see that Zenith has got 2 that are still up. Vegas might be opting along this corridor as well, so has to be very, very careful. Old Times, not aware of who they could be fighting or how strong of a team. That's where they're showing their hesitation. They know that they just wiped out somebody that was walking up behind them, but they don't know if this is an entire 4-man squad that's now contesting their position. So instead, leaning into caution and eyeing back to the east.
And Tig still very much has a chance to make a pretty big play here, but Vegas has also kind of snuck a little bit above him just on the north there. So Tig has to worry about not only Old Times, but as well as the remaining members of Zenith here. As 303 is just sitting. Yeah, Shinboy is actually on the side of the buildings of 303, up that compound.
Ooh, Zach's got to play this one carefully. He spots it out. Oh, and Tiggleton managed to get the down onto one of them. Let's see if we see the full man press up into it. Tig has to play this one very carefully now, blinded from his position, playing right behind the rock. Spots out one as they're making the approach, gets some damage onto it, but the numbers are too strong. Sonics goes down in 6th, and it's going to be Old Times that gets control over everything in the Southwest.
I thought Old Times would clean that up, but that knock and that headshot kind of made me believe. But Tig ultimately getting traded out there. Well played by Old Times, a nice try by Tig. But here we go. Oath, I talked about it earlier. They actually pushed up and lost one early on this compound, but this is it. They're now going to feel pressure as well from Old Times coming over from the west side. So what is Oath going to do here, and how is 303 going to hold this? They also still have Vegas to worry about.
Well, 303 was having to contest against Shimboy that snuck up back behind them just a second ago. So they looked away, and Oath used that opportunity to push right into the hillside where they're at. Now look at positioning with this hillside being such a factor and steep declines moving from this point. 303 has a lot of decisions ahead of them. They know they're being pressed from one side. Oath holding that position. They just had a straggler come up back behind them a second ago. They don't know where the threats are hiding around them, and one of them is Vegas, who's kind of hunkered down into position. But do note, Old Times, who we just saw a little while ago, they have to move as well. They're no longer inside the safe zone, so they may be opting, and it looks like they're slowly pushing their way north and could contest into 303's territory.
I actually really like what Enrage is doing here. We haven't really talked about them either because they haven't had a massive impact on this game, but I mean, they actually took a forward position with Asin, and now they're holding back with the other two to basically see who's going to pop over this ridge. So really smart play coming out from them as we watch this fight, basically take place.
Vegas has got an enemy team on both sides. He has to play this so cautiously. You can see he's just listening in for footsteps and anything that moves around him. Old Times, though, now getting a little bit better of a positioning, looking down, seeing, it looks like they do have an idea on where Enrage might be playing from. Shouldn't be too big of a surprise. There's only really 2 compounds that are in play, a little bit of the hillside compound, and then the one that's down to the east. So with positioning, a lot of the information now being fed over. Enrage does have the foothold right in the center and a lot of the territory claimed. The other teams really just forced up against this northwestern wall, right along where the new zone is going to be finishing in at. Now it's just a matter of how Oath wants to try to play this with 303 still holding the high ground position. Keep in mind, 303's positioning that they're playing in right now isn't really going to be that much inside the safe zone, so they just want to commit to here and try to defend up. Stop Old Times from really stepping into their territory, and it looks like that's what they've managed to do. Old Times now looking in, pushing over towards the east.
Yeah, this is really rough, though, because the only area that they really have to play, 303 at the tip of that compound on that ledge, is where Oath has full vision, and they are quite open. So 303 needs to be very careful the way they approach this. And on top of that, Vegas is still here. I mean, he's still just snaking. He could potentially backstab.
I mean, he's got goals. He knows what's going on. He knows where the threats are.
And he should be safe relatively here, I think. He's going to be just outside. Actually, no, never mind. Old might see him as well. Oh, this is so... These guys are so close to each other. They don't even know. And now look at the north side. Yeah, 303 is going to have to slowly start creeping it. This next circle is going to be really, really brutal.
Exec seems to hear it. It's just crawl versus crawl. Spots out one, gets the damage onto him, and that's 2 down for Vegas. Sitting on 2 hit points. The positioning Old Times really wanted to play from. Already losing 2. 303 coming in back behind Vegas. He was the hero that was defending them, but it's just going to be everybody running in trying to pick up this kill. Lines up on both sides. 303 now gets vision on Old Times and just charging into it.
And here comes now Junior, and they're going to find another knock. What a play from Vegas, absolutely crippling Old Times. And now 303 has come in to wipe it. Oh! Wait a second.
holds it up on the other side. Deep Points tries to get something together. Just one up for 303. It was looking so good for them for so long. Finally manages to eliminate Old Times. But now Oath has crept him back behind them, and it is just a bait and switch lined up. Shots are going to come through off of that one, and there you go. Oath on the high ground, and then back over on the low ground. It's going to be Enraged. The problem comes into play. Oath has to push down into a very hazardous circle, but Enraged already has a firm, strong defensive position.
They do, but just as easily as they can hold this, you know, a member or two of Oath can kind of slip by their sidelines and cause a lot of problems, which is, yeah, so many bodies on the west side of the circle here. But yeah, Snakers could potentially try to wrap. This is going to be tough, but I would not count Oath out of this at all, specifically because they've been fighting this entire game, and Rage really hasn't. So the Oath is probably feeling pretty good right now.
I mean, they've got the high ground, and they're still going to have a little bit of that hillside that they can play. But you can see Asen in his position. That's going to be huge. Depending on if he can get a flank around, maybe get a couple of knocks, that's where the game is going to come apart for Oath. If they don't spot out this reposition, it's going to be terrible for them. Kickstart's trying to get a little bit more information in that northern area, but that hillside really isn't inside the safe zone where he's wanting to play it. So it's really just to get information for now. Rest of Oath already throwing down the utility, know that they're going to have to reposition in that southern area. Kickstart's taking a ton of damage, narrowly manages to make it inside the smoke. But here's where those flank positions start to pay off. Are they going to spot him out? No, the damage coming in on both sides. Balefrost trying to push down the hillside. He's going to get spotted out by Psycho. He does go down. But Oath just tries to make their way through this, but Enrage has the bead, has the lineup, and manages to take him down.
It was just, again, I pointed that out, I think, 2 circles ago. Enrage were setting up for the end game. They knew that all the teams were going to have to fight in the north and the west. That's exactly what happened, and they just took advantage of that. They set up Ascend really early, and even though I believe Oath could have potentially won that, I mean, they would have had to get a really clean knock very quickly in order to push that west side. So overall, really well played to them. Obviously, that fight was crazy with Old Times and Vegas, and yeah, well played to everyone. And Rage,
I just feel so bad for Vegas. He was doing such a good job of helping 303, and his reward was to be shot in the back for it.
You know, normally you would like lambast a player for like pulling out their sniper rifle when they're prone, but he ran out of ammo after 2 beautiful knocks, and I actually think that was the play, to pull out the arm and just try to get a knock if he could. So well played to Vegas, and not a bad showing for that team, Zenith.
So with this, I mean, strong performance. A lot of people were talking about Enrage before we moved into this, and you're now seeing why. Their map knowledge, the way they move through this, and specifically
very smart.
How they know how to firefight at different stages is just so good.
So good indeed. So far, I will have to say that first game also impressed with Spicy Fish. Even though they did go out early, the way that they had spread, the confidence that they showed in that, it was unfortunate that, again, the circle kind of forced them into a really rough position, and they got sandwiched between 2 teams, 303 as well as Oath. But I think Spicy Fish played that well as far as, you know, what they were trying to do and what they were trying to accomplish with the rotations. Early showing, but liked it overall.
Yeah, I mean, it all kind of came down to the circles, just being quite cruel. A lot of just directed hardships, point to point to point, as they made their way through this one. And with this, let's go ahead and take a look back at the standings. Up at the top of it, it's going to be Oath with 18 points, walking away with a ton of kills inside of it. Old Time's going to be back behind that one. Good positioning coming in, as walking away with 9 kill points of their own, and then shoot to kill just off of kills back behind it. I don't think that this is right, because I'm just calling it as I go, but I don't know if that feels right to me.
7 kills, maybe, you know, I don't know. We'll have to revisit that. But this fight was also really great. Watching Gas Cans and 300 kind of just absolutely slug it out there was a nice little treat. Little early things to come, so to speak. SDK was, I mean, they were dealing with 2 teams pretty much from the start of this. They were just trying to get in. And Zenith, overall, I mean, they played this really, really well. I love the fact that they came to this position early. They noticed that SDK was fighting 22, and they basically gate kept them.
Yeah, I mean, just good overall positioning. We saw Zenith just trying to make sure that they constantly stayed alive. That's kind of the benefit whenever you look at how Zenith manages to play. Even when things come apart for them, they manage to find some creative way to sneak into the later stages of this.
They're definitely one of those teams that salvage, and you could say the same thing about, honestly, a lot of the teams on this field, specifically like Sonics, as well as we saw Tig try to kind of survive here. But this is a really crazy fight between Dodge. I mean, this west side, Matt, was popping off.
Yeah, I mean, everybody was just stacked up over here. It was bloodbath into push, positioning everywhere. It felt like every single dip had a player back behind it, and more often than not, it felt like it was Vegas in that position. Tig did a great job on trying to hold up for his team as well. Sonic's taking a couple of early casualties on this one, but you can see lines up a beautiful connection onto it. But it was just too many people pushing up the side. Vegas, though, with his hero defensive play, lines up 2 HP. But then still going to get spotted out. 303 is going to run back down and say, hey, what's this firefight? We want to be a part of it.
Yeah, and he pulled out a Zom. I was like, yep, that's the only play. He was out of ammo pretty much. I think he had like 8 bullets left in his main. But Oath, I really want to talk about Oath and the way that they pretty much played this entire game from the east. And the timings in which they decided to push and get in there. I mean, again, Oath showed a lot of really, really great PUBG pretty much for that first game. So. Again, Oath with Kickstart's dangerous.
A slow boil.
Dangerous team.
It's a slow boil to get there. Everybody's got to get a feel. Half of this lobbies, everybody hasn't really fought each other, so it's going to take a little while for everything to kind of mesh, figure out how everybody's going to be rotating through. You saw that there was a couple of, I wouldn't say hyper-aggressive plays, like whenever we saw Shoot to Kill roll up into position on Zenith. They wanted it, but then you can see everybody going, okay, it's the first game, let's slow it down. Let's don't be too bloodthirsty just yet.
And I think that's what it is, Matt. It's just the first game, right? So there's a lot of things we can talk about, what we think we saw or this or that. But ultimately, yeah, these teams are going to adapt, and I'm sure we'll see that over the next couple games coming through, specifically when we get off Miramar and then move on to Erangel. Yeah,
and just to confirm with everybody, yes, the leaderboard was incorrect because I was like, I don't think that's how the win went. But we'll go ahead and get those. We'll look back into it. We'll try to get everything to you guys in just a little while. I don't want to bait and switch you guys, but that's what we're going to have to do there. We're trying to get everything set and get all the players back together at this stage. So it'll be just a couple of minutes, and we're probably going to be taking a break in just a moment as well. So with this, Godspeed. Any takeaways off this first round?
Enraged really impressed me again with the decision making. The way that they played that final circle was almost perfect. So I'm really looking forward to watching some more Enraged.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get to see a lot of them until the end. But if you were watching anything that was going on with the map, the way that they moved through everything that was going on in the east was so well done.
Yep, agreed 100%.
So with this, guys, we're going to go ahead and reset, get everything ready. We're going to take a quick break. We will see you in just a few minutes.
My name is Dylan Short. I'm from Florida. I go by the name Roth, or Spicy Roth.
My name is Jeremy Travers. I'm from Newfoundland, Canada. My in-game name is Keenan.
I'm Sharpshot. My name is Daniel Hernandez. I'm from South Florida.
My name is Timothy Ebarb. I go by the name Uncivil.
Hey, what's up, guys? My name is James Gazen, aka TGLTN. I play PUBG for the Susquehanna Sonics. I'm from Australia. Got a rep OCE. Super excited to be here.
The team I see as our biggest competition would have to be Sonics. They're the winners of the last PGIS competition, which was the biggest competition in the world.
SDK, just because they've been a roster for such a long time and they have so much experience. But there are a lot of other rosters on the rise who have a lot of talent. So, namely, I guess, Spicy Fish. We'll see how they do going forward.
At the end of the day, it comes down to every team is talented, and I think it comes down to the zone, and it comes down to how the game plays out. I think we have 16 of some of the world's best at this event, and I'm excited to come out and show why we belong.
If we win this tournament, I'll probably end up just saving my money like a responsible young adult. I will not impulse buy anything.
I'm going to take my cousins to Disney World.
I'll probably take the prize money and invest in some diapers for my newborn. She's running through them pretty quick, so formula and diapers, that's for me.
Game 1 is in the books. You're watching the ESL PUBG Masters Americas. My name's Toffees. I'm joined by Cam and Clover as we kick this off. A big win for Enrage. Now, some people have had their eyes on this team starting out today. Others were watching Sonics and Spicy Fish. But Enrage, they step up. They get the win. And Clover, you noticed something a little bit different about the team. What was it?
Yeah, I mean, Cable missing, right? This was one of the 4 players that they played with kind of coming up to this point, and he's retired. Asen has stepped up to fill in their 4th spot. And knowing that, going into a first match, you kind of be a little bit worried, you know, is the dynamic for this team going to work? But you know what? It does right now, and they're still looking as good as we saw them in the group stage. Yeah,
you can be worried, Cameron, until a win happens, right? And then all you can do is say, I guess it was a congratulations on your retirement, my guy. That's
the right call there, buddy.
Right? The team's like, well, that worked out. Let's take a look at the overall the standings so far. As soon as those are ready, we're going to show them to you guys and let you know exactly who is in front. There it is. Walk me through this, Cam.
Yeah, so Enraged, again, first place at the top, only 5 kills, but a very, very solid control of the late game, which is very much within their MO. But then right below them, Oath and Zenith coming in as the kill leaders with 303 as well, up there with close to double digits, not quite. That's not too much of a surprise, especially on the Oath and Zenith side. In fact, at the top of show, we were talking about how they have good fraggers despite the roster moves between the two of them. And they were really trying to run rampant as much as they could, but ultimately this was a very solid game for most squads, considering how difficult of an ending that was, pulling away from Monte Nuevo. There was that hill, that 303, were the basically fully confirmed kings of. Very difficult hill to climb up.
All right, now I got a little bit of a comparison. Let's take a look at Oath and Enrage side to side. Clover, you can break it down for me.
Yeah, I mean, Oath, there you go, and current 2nd place and Rage 1st. But, you know, 5 kills, 7 kills, really seeing the proactivity that Oath had playing that northern position, kind of just outside 303's compounds. But the damage, I mean, really spells out. 1,502 is just absolutely insane. And Rage kind of kept a little bit conservative. The circle wasn't doing them too many favors, but they were making sure that they were in really good position, especially when you have a team like 303 in a compound. Both of these teams kind of took that on differently, but we can see that the points kind of get a little bit close there, and that's chicken dinner for Enrage.
It's all about the points, right? I mean, Enrage did some damage, but Oath did some damage. Let's take a look at kill leads. I want to know who's not just doing the damage, who's putting the kills on the board, Cam?
Trisk up there at the top with 303. They got, I believe, 7 kills, tied with Oath, but then Zenith as well. But seeing Roth there sort of sneaking in, kind of reminding us that, hey, I was the kill leader of Zenith when I was on their roster. I was a kill leader of Spicy Fish during group stage. I'm going to try and continue to go for the kill leader here. But, oh my God, wait. Now I really want to see 303's total damage.
Yikes.
That's between 3 of them, 1,700. Right? That's already more than what Oath had, and that's before their 4th player.
I mean, it kind of breaks the compound curse just a little bit, right? I mean, being in the center, having a comfortable compound like that didn't really prevent any of them from being in line of sight of all these different teams and picking up damage and kills. But unfortunately, that shift as it went further south away from their compound there at the end really, I think, kind of bit them, because all the other teams had really stacked themselves north. They didn't really have an easy access out of there.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the damage in the kill charts, Cameron, and it struck me a little bit odd in game 1. It didn't seem like our frag forward teams really came out and had particularly crazy good games. They were kind of getting caught up. What was going on? Why are teams like Spicy Fish, Akresha, Guadalajara Gas Cans, they're all on the bottom?
That's partly, again, just because, as what Clover said, 303 on top of that hill had a line of sight over a bunch of different teams. It was really difficult for these frag forward squads to find areas to isolate engagements, and that's really what you need to be able to do to be a kill-heavy team, is to learn, okay, I can take these guys out, no threat of third party. In fact, Akreche did that earlier on in the game. They saw Dodge, and I believe 300 in a little bit of engagement of their own, and they went under the shadow of that hill to push onto them, take out Dodge, and then backed away. They didn't overcommit. They got their kills, and they left. But it's the fact that 303 were still the centerpiece of that entire game made it difficult for that to happen too many different times.
I'm going to ask Clover, Sonics, they went out in 10th. We're going, what map is next? And that was Miramar. They're supposed to win those.
You know, I will say this. It felt good to see Tiggleton be the last player up. I think that lately, sometimes the story has been that he's first to fall and still finding ways to do some damage, get up some points at the end. It was kind of a 2 placement, 2 kills for them. Not the best showing, but hey, it was a weird circle. It's only match number 1. I never say never.
They had a tough push up that hill. You saw him sneak to the ramp. Zampa tried to make a clever flank that maybe almost worked, but at the end of the day, they're in 10th place. We'll see if they can turn it around next time. All right, now I've got your predictions for who wins this whole tournament. I assume you're both wrong and I'm right, but we'll move past that. And we'll go to predictions for this game. This is just for fun. I want to know who you think is going to win this one and why. I'm going to start with you, Cam.
Why'd you start with me? I'm going to look towards Gascons.
Okay, why?
I mean, you can never really properly count them out. They always have that little bit of X factor that they can turn on at any time, and it seemed that the previous game was a good little warm-up start for them.
Clover?
You know, as much as I want to say spicy fish, I'm also kind of looking a little bit maybe towards in Czech. They went out a little bit early. It wasn't a great game for them, but Miramar is a stronghold for them. So I want to see them make a comeback this match.
All right, I like it. You know what? I'm going to pick Spicy Fish because you did it. I think it's time for the Spicy Fish to fire up and become some real big fish in a little pod. Let's get the goods. It's time to go. You've heard the picks. You've seen the scores. Game number 2 is about to start with the gorgeous voices of Godspeed and Matchroom.
Gorgeous voices. Now I feel like we just need to be doing like an ASMR thing, like, why, thank you, Talkies. And here we are. Like, trying to bring the energy up here a little bit because this is going to be our last Miramar game of the day because we only do 4 per day. So with this, Godspeed, a slower start. Again, that's what we were expecting.
Yeah.
But we saw some very strong performances from the Latin American teams.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just gonna say this. When a few years ago, the Latin American region was definitely not the strongest region when it came to like competitions. Obviously, NA had mixed before with LATAM in the past. There's really only like 1 or 2 good teams, but now I do feel like over the years, LATAM has not only become a really good region, but I mean has supported some really good players. Obviously, Sparking is one of the ones I'm talking about, but LATAM is absolutely a threat now, which makes me really excited to actually see them in this format with us finally after a long time of having their own region. We're not mixing. So yeah, definitely the top 8 from LATAM are here to play.
I mean, I've got my eyes on Sparking. I'm not going to lie.
For sure.
Dude is nuts. It's amazing to watch whenever he plays and how he manages to establish things. I mean, look at the fact that he's now switched over teams, and the team that was at PGIS that he was with didn't even qualify to this stage. That just lets you guys know this is a guy to keep an eye on him, whatever he's going to try to be bringing inside this next round. We've been seeing a lot of, I guess, hard shifts inside that last circle. It's always weird to say hard shifts whenever we don't have the hard shifts here.
But yeah, that's also weird.
The circles, Godspeed. The circles, man. Starting off with the old tried and true MPL circle and then shift to the north, shift to the south, shift to the east. It was just all over the place. How do you contest with that? Like, how do you plan around that type of behavior?
You plan, honestly, the way like Zenith had, the way that they stayed on the outside, and when they decided to come in, when they noticed there was 2 teams fighting in the north, way past the position that they wanted to play, it really comes down to kind of mapping that out and putting yourself in a good position to rotate, right? And what I mean is not only an actual spot on the map that has good like roads or potential values to like rotate in, but also where you're placing yourselves amongst the other teams, knowing which teams are fighting, and that's pretty much how you get around really hard shifted circles like that.
Very similar playing path if you just invert it from what we saw last time. We started off over Valmar, end up over in the Campo Militar. This time around, we're going from Puerto Paraiso over into Trailer Park. So again, should have everything available. No spicy hot drops coming into play yet, but we saw a very southern circle last time. Maybe this time we'll get some variance inside of it. I mean, I can always hope for the island circle.
Oh,
you know, one
absolutely.
Day.
Islands or Higos, or I'll take Prison. I don't think I have ever seen a North American game end at Prison. I could be wrong, but I don't remember ever being on the broadcast where it actually ended there. I have seen games internationally end there. I think specifically in, in the Asian region, actually, Korea, there's a few circles that ended there. I'd have to ask Clint.
Well, they play a ton of games over there, so they're bound to get the number advantage inside of it. So with this, you can see Gascan's Nico is going to be making a little bit of a play, grabbing a car, and then running away from where we saw 300 hold up. Spicy Fish. Looks like they're doing their drop back over next to Monte. No big craziness that's going to be happening over there. Circle is about to pop. Actually, just popped, and that's going to be along the east, and it still has the islands in play, Godspeed.
It does still
Profit
have the
matchup coming into
islands.
play?
I really don't think it's going to shift there. This, for the most part, is very much going to be probably an Impala or Impala field ending, which these circles in themselves have a lot of challenges, so to speak, in themselves. One of the things being the fact that it is very, very open. And if you're not in a position early, specifically if you're not in Impala or if you're not in one of the surrounding compounds to the west, you might be in a lot of trouble rotating in. But that's for a few shifts. We'll see if we get there.
Zek's in a lot of trouble right now, down to 3 HP, and Roth is after this right now. He knows the fact that this is a vulnerable squad, rolling away from this one, wants to commit into it. Being able to get some damage into old times will not only open up rotation possibilities later, also pick them up a couple of kills, which is always nice in these earlier stages. Roth, though, I mean, he wants this. This is a full-on car chase. All the way to the south. It's been going on for a couple of 100 meters now, almost moving into 1,000. Roth finally pumps the brakes onto it and says, okay, this might be rolling into a little bit of a trap. Maybe pushing this one a little bit too far. I mean, he's got himself a Vector. That's about it. I don't think you want to commit into this one. Yeah, okay, now he's going to go ahead and retreat back up. That's to be expected.
He was absolutely in there, but I'd also like to remind you, Matt, that neither his team nor the team to the south is in the circle. Now, I will say this. I do believe that Old Times actually has a really good rotation coming in from the south. It's probably the same rotation that we'll see in Rage taken up. It's a very popular way to get into the circle, specifically if you're coming in from whether it's the north or the south, but also just because no one generally plays around Puerto.
Well, we've got a couple of interesting things whenever we look at the circle itself. Most notably, we're over in Cabrera right now, not inside the circle, nothing to be concerned with. But the fields that are to the west of Impala are just essentially a no man's land. There's a couple of buildings in there that you can play, but that's going to be a lot of dead zone. You can see the fact that we already have 2 Los Leones teams that are posted up. No surprise, they're probably going to rotate out, probably go to play in the east. That means that late rotating teams are not going to have a lot of options, specifically with teams like Oath and Sonics. Right up along the edge, if you rotate too early, you're going to be bumping into very frag-heavy teams. And both of those teams are probably going to try to rotate a little bit closer to center anyway. So you've got a little bit of a variable inside of this whenever you might find a free rotation. But if you wait too long, all the rest of the teams are just going to take it away from you. And they're just going to cluster up against the edge of the wall.
And there's a few circles on Miramar, similarly on Wrangell, but specifically there's a few circles on Miramar where that is the case, where if you don't set up early, it's very difficult, especially if you're rotating in much later than other teams. It becomes a massive problem. This is one of those circles, and then obviously, Matt, the Hacienda circles that we've seen in the past where it centers around Hacienda. There's really not a lot of playable areas around there either, and just like that, Asan is going to lose. Man, we've had some vehicle mishaps so far today.
North America, Latin America, doesn't matter. Early stages, none of us can drive, apparently. That's the takeaway of the day.
Very true. Sonics, though, this is a really nice compound to be set up. And in fact, this is actually one of my favorite compounds in this circle to be set up. And just because you have, yes, there's teams in front of you that inevitably you'd probably have to deal with some sooner rather than later, but you have so much information that you can gather from here. Especially the Bendita Bowl. Yeah, the Bendita Bowl
is so
as well.
good. Plus, on top of that, it's also got a longhouse, and those are just like notoriously hard to take, so you get a side benefit from that. There's so many strengths in that position. So Sonic's already very strong off right now. Our Los Leones team's already moving. You can see a lot of teams already trying to figure out how they're going to encroach the zone. Enrage rolling through right now. You can see that they're rolling by 303. Looks like they're going to go ahead and pick themselves up another vehicle. Early rotators being rewarded with those strong points that we were talking about beforehand. Zenith kind of being the second wave that's making their way through. But a lot of the teams that were more to the north and more to the west, no inherent rush to make their way inside the zone. I wouldn't be surprised if is this like one of those circles where you decide to maybe second circle it? Just try to come in the moment the circle hits and then hit the second one?
If you are one of the teams on the outer edge of the circle, yes, that is exactly what you do. Obviously, if you're one of the teams that have set it up earlier, you happen to loot where that is. Like if you're Oath or if you're 300, gas cans, they're not really going to be inclined to move just because they don't need to. They're definitely set up for the first circle. They're probably set up for the second circle. It's the teams on the outside who are essentially going to have to basically play for circle 2 or 3.
A little bit of an interesting situation you can see as most people now firmly defended up, but 303 rotating with 3 off on this area, but they did leave 1 behind. And that's going to be playing back over next to Los Leones. Finally hopping inside of a vehicle, but with a late rotation on their tail end, this last member might find themselves bumping into Enrage yet again. 303, though, getting a little bit more information. It seems like they're aware that Young Kings could be around their positioning. Off in front of them, it looks like it's going to be 300 that they're going to get a little bit of information on. I mean, you would think that 303 should beat 300 when they line up against each other, right? They're 3 better.
I didn't actually think you were taking it that way. I did not answer that question, but now I think I do. I think you're right. 303 technically, 3 better. I don't know how to argue that, Matt. That was well played.
Apparently, Young Kings also better because they managed to take down and get a quick flush onto Trisk. Has to retreat away. Remember that 303 is running this area now with just 2 members. They still have one of their members that are back behind them, trying to roll into this, but that can lead to a problem. Shoot to kill, though, finding themselves in a little bit of an early skirmish. Going to take a couple of shots back over towards Oldest, get some assistance from Alo, and he's going to go down. That should be a pretty easy little pickup for them. We do see the gas cans running a very wide 2-1-1 split, so there's no reinforcements coming for Oldest.
And that's kind of the risk. I mean, that's inevitably what happens if you have a full team or at least 2 or 3 crashing you when you're that split. I mean, if you're not going to win that, 2v1 or 1v3 firefight, yeah, you're going to go down. So I do like the fact that they tried it. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. SDK came in knocking, and now we see a crash and some problems. Sparking's been knocked.
Yeah, Roth got a grenade going off right in front of his face right now, feeding the information. But look at the pincered positions that we can see that Spicy Fish are playing from. Sharpshot just rolling through right now, no fears. Roth trying to get him in position to go ahead and get this flush. He is going to connect with it. Now a little bit more trouble starting to pop off as Viking also going to go down off of this one, but Roth finally going to go down from Flux's exchange as well. Sharpshot goes down from nice position, and Crash manages to line up a nice bit of retaliation into this one. But Kaishin, the last one up, really playing this position, trying to see if maybe he can get something for it. He is very low on life, and the other 2 members that are still up for Spicy Fish feel like they got the angles to work with, and boy, do they.
I mean, they have a really big chance here to potentially wipe out Spicy Fish. It really comes down to that angle that Flux has, I believe.
Kaishin has to play this. He has to survive 2 different angles. Flux gets the angle onto him. Now Kaishin playing around this one. Just one up for Spicy Fish. Lots of damage coming into Keenan. He has to retreat from point. And look, Kaishin feels like he's got the groove to work with it. Starting to push across. Still low on life. Instead, no, just going to go run back over and try to go for the res. Use Flux as cover. He knows exactly where Keenan's playing from. Now it's just a matter of can Keenan dodge the bullets that Flux is trying to set up, because it looks like Keenan's trying to go for a play of his own. Hero play running across the smoke. Going to deny a little bit more vision. Couple of taps are going to connect, but Keenan going to be stepping into a 2v1. Gets it down on 1, but can't get the second one. Spicy Fish goes down, and Crash comes out on top.
So that was, I really like that decision from Keenan, knowing that he had to make a play, but the fact that Crash was able to turn that around, especially after losing Sparking, the positioning from Flux, that was beautifully played from Crash. I'm starting to become a big fan of this team.
Boy, I feel you. I feel you, Enrage. Getting your toes popped off, and that's how you go down. 2 members down, now just down to 1. Enrage doing a little bit of damage control. Ruben gets a nice shot, finishes out Junior over here, but still looks like the rest of 303 a little defended up. You can see that the smokes are down. They might be able to get the res back onto Eisen as well. Shouldn't be too much concern coming out right now if you're an Enrage fan. 303 in a little bit of trouble, though, as they did manage to regroup, but they are in a very bad position. They've got Young Kings off on one point, 300 off on another one, and then they still have just Enrage lined up on position very close to them.
Yeah, and even though Enrage didn't get necessarily insert this next shift, I again really love the position that they're playing from. And initially when they got here, they weren't necessarily centered. They were kind of off in an area where they would probably be left alone, or at the most part only have to fight one team. But really, they were in a position where they could rotate really well off this. And again, I really like the positioning off of Enrage so far.
Biskin does manage to get away, and it looks like going to retreat into Impala and a little bit of safety that it provides for now, right on the edge of the zone. Gas cans were playing a little bit along this corridor. I think there's still 1 player that's still hanging around this location, but let's be honest. If you decide to hide inside of Impala as a solo, it's going to be real hard for anybody to find you, and I don't think the gas cans are on the hunt for that right now. Really, it's just a lineup of teams that are playing across the fields and teams with vision to work with in those fields that are the west of Impala. Oath, one of those teams in a great position.
Yeah, plus clearing out like a potential like rat player in Impala, like a massive city like that this early, I agree. It's not worth it. And none of these teams are really going to be trying to do that, especially because of the fact that Impala really isn't even that much in the circle. It'll probably be out by the next. But if we look at the center of the circle, especially where Oath is sitting, I mean, this is prime real estate, and Oath knows that. look for them to get as many frags as possible here, as well as just hurting teams away from them. And a lot of that dead zone that we were talking about earlier, Matt, is starting to come into play because look at the spread that Gas Cans has now. They pretty much are locking down anyone trying to rotate anywhere along the east side of the map unless they go super wide.
This is why we refer to this as a gauntlet position. If you come in from the north, such as if you see in check, if they roll through this and they try to push their way to the south, there's going to be so many teams just lined up. The first team may not kill you. The second team may not. But the third, the fourth, the fifth, that's when the troubles are really just going to continue to mount off. So in check, which direction are you going to go? I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe just stall out from right here, not wanting to contend with it. Yep, no surprise off of that one, just stop. They do have the neighbors that's going to be shoot to kill. It's a little bit close, and I think that they've got a team that's to the northeast of their position, but that shouldn't be too scary for them either. So with this one, it looks like most teams have managed to carve themselves out of a little bit of a place and territory to call home. Set up for just a second, but really, I've just got my eyes continually drawn back towards that center position where we were talking about how strong Oath was playing from, Sonic's positioning and how strong that was as well. Those two are right next to each other and can really line up to harass so many teams.
Well, to be fair, Dodge also is in a very, very good position in the circle. I mean, they're just off to the west side of La Bandita, and they can pretty much control that side of their bowl, so to speak, of the crater there. Yeah, looking at this circle and the way all the teams are set up between Dodge to Oath, and then you also have Gas Cans SDK on the north, I mean, pretty much the only chances I think any of these teams are going to have of even making it in the circle would probably be on either the south or like maybe the north. I mean, the north side, like the northwest, south to west. Yeah, this is rough. This is rough for the other teams, and that's what happens when these guys get in here and they get entrenched in those positions and circle favors. It's a rough game for the teams on the outside.
You guys are looking in check. They rolled into the safe zone, stopped in Minas, and they were like, this is as far as we want to go because we know that this is going to be rough. 54 people still up means the fact that this circle is extremely hazardous, mostly due to the amount of dead zone that those fields create. That means that the teams are stacked up if they're in position, and if you have to rotate, God, it's going to be deadly to try to do so. You can see even teams leaning in, trying to use walls, other buildings to try to protect their tires and positions.
Oh, no.
Circle pops, and boy, if you like fields, we're going to keep a chunk of it in play. But that territory just to the south and to the west of Junkyard could be quite strong.
Yeah, if you're STK right now, or even Durrani, they were like very nervous about this potentially shifting south, but now they can actually play from Minas Generalis pretty comfortably, and they even have a little bit of the north, even all the way over to the east to Raptu. That compound that's just east of STK's Luke and Penta is really, really good, especially if the circle decides to favor the east again.
Yeah, I mean, okay, rotation's coming in. Crash, rushing in, going to be running right along Incheck's positioning. Do manage to get a little bit of a stop inside of it. VH King getting himself in a good position off of it and going to be able to defend up. The rest of the team should be able to come in back behind him, but that wall isn't going to provide a ton of cover. It does have a little bit of a dip back behind it, but this push just gets a little bit more deadly with each single teammate that has to push into this point. So with Incheck lined up into position, it looks like Crash said, hey, we don't necessarily want this one. Do note that Shoot to Kill is already rotated as well. It decided to go a little bit further to the east and hold down a compound of their own. So Crash not going to have to contend with him based off of the positioning just quite yet. But the problem is, there's that gauntlet we were talking about. There's several teams that do get vision onto it. 300 and a little bit of their own trouble trying to push into that position where we see Oath holding down, 300 just holding up right along this hillside.
Yeah, at this point, looking at the circle, if I was 300, this is absolutely the play to make. You go for Oath, one of the teams that's still in arguably one of the strongest positions in the circle, and you try to take it from them. So I very much like this from 300, if they commit.
I mean, they don't have a lot of teams that are going to be forcing them from the south the way that their circle is set
exactly.
up. Once we see Young Kings, Old Times move, as long as they survive for now, they're going to be in a prime position. The issue is, Enrage is kind of set up and taking some shots over into Oath, and also sees 300's position and is doing a lot of shots their direction. You can see them down there on the mini-map, making it a little bit more difficult for them as Vox did go down, but I think that they've got vehicle fortifications lined up that should be allowed through them. But I don't know. Like, you can see, there's some smokes down, there's some vehicles down, but God, that's a lot of bullets coming out from Enrage.
Yeah, but again, like you said, 300 knows they just have to weather the storm because Enrage is not in the circle. So as long as they can just use their vehicles as cover, they may not need the vehicles again, depending on the shift. They can kind of just fight on foot around the bowl of Bandita. This is the play. Now for Enrage, I'm starting to wonder what their play is because they will soon run out of time. They have about 35 seconds before the circle comes in, and then they have to think about moving. And now they're taking shots and they're getting knocked.
This is a problem. Eyes down to 1 hitch point right now, and then you've got Goobin and Cycle that are already down off of this, so that's going to be a chain res, and that's going to be the entirety of the time for your circle. Even if they manage to get them up, it's hopping in the vehicle and then running into a bloodbath. Old Times, aware of what's happening, you can see already hopped in vehicles, sees an opportunity, and they're just going to roll into this one. They think that they can try to get this one. Run res has already come through, trying to position up off of it. They don't even care that they're playing outside in the zone. They're trying to find the opportunity to work with. Not a lot of options as far as vision goes just quite yet. 2 already down. Finally spots out the targets that they were looking for. Gets a little bit of retaliations back, but now just dancing through this one. 1 up run rage finally gets taken down. Now they have to exchange this one through, and just 1 member up running into the safe zone. And God, look at the flushes coming out. 300. Finally getting that vengeance back.
I mean, look, sending it into the blue to take out a team is generally not always the best play, but in this situation where they really didn't have anywhere else to go, I love the fact that they not only got the knocks, but they aggressed on it. Shots coming out from Vox. Can he hit them? So much damage. Close on N1. But yes, regardless, I still like that play from Old Times. Even though they lost 3 members, they got all the points for that wipe. They got rid of the team. That's a placement as well, moving up, even though it's, just 2 teams down. They just need to survive, maybe get a few more points. This is, remember, still the super setting, so those kills do matter.
And you can see 300 now very content. They managed to survive. Nobody's harassing them anymore. So Zenith's got some ideas to work with. Punich jumps right into the thick of it. Gas cans right inside their territory. See if maybe he can distract for a little while. Let the rest of his team come through, and it looks like that was the opportunity that they were trying to set up. Really, Punich is just trying to survive this one and bait him around. Look different angles. He charges in. He doesn't even care. Takes down and flushes one real quick. Now he's just dancing around the inside of this one while the reinforcements come through, and gas cans get eliminated quick.
Man, Zenith continuing to impress. And Poon, I really have to say that I feel like PGIS was one of the best things that happened to young players like Shin, like Poon, who have had experience with us. I mean, Poon has been a part of some really great teams in his past as well, but the fact that I think that was what really was going to start to separate them and give them that confidence in going these games is having that international experience. And you can see there, Poon played that very, very well.
You can see the new problem that is mounting as we've got a little bit of positional buying going on between Dodge and Incheck. Incheck has the high ground looking into him, but Dodge is trying to defend it up. Kaishin's going to get a little bit of a shot in on the side of this one and take down 97. Flush is going to come through. Lampalot and manages to line up the grenade into it. Incheck is the one that wanted this fight, moved into position, already lost 2 of their members, and yet again, Dodge doing a great job on holding up, but just to the south of this position, there's 3 members of Sonics that might be looking into Dodge's position as well.
Yep, Dodge, I mean, fortunately, the team of Incheck has to push them, so they don't necessarily need to get too aggressive to get rid of that threat. But yeah, Sonics is really the threat that I think they're going to have to turn their attention to quite quickly here, specifically because Zampa is just starting to rain utility, and Sonics may be setting up here. We'll see.
I'm having flashbacks to old school Zampa just walking up into the face of enemy teams. H1 goes down. Hikerman managing to form for his team yet again. Quick flush onto that one, but on the other side of it, Publix manages to line into Hikerman, gets the down onto him. Shrimsy getting a little bit more vision on what's happening around the positions. Flush and down also onto Lampalot. Dodge getting assaulted on 2 different sides. Finally manages to take down Incheck and can focus in on the Sonics in the danger close position that they're playing from.
Yeah, fighting in this bowl is also very difficult. There's a lot of different elevations, a lot of different pockets players can be hiding in, and it's rough, especially when you start to crest over the bowl. It's hard. Mm-hmm. And Sonics is square in the middle right now, which is a problem.
Zampa already down, so now you can see Dodge doing a good job of trying to lean into the terrain, waiting for somebody to profile up. Tig's gone for a nice side flank into this, but no vision to really work with. Just this little bit of a dip that Dodge is leaning into has made it too difficult to work around. You can see he does have some vision, but he doesn't really have the capability to step through with the smokes the way that they've been laying down. Shrimsy looks like he's trying to go for a res onto Zampa, and now it's going to be about a reposition. New grenade's going to land right on top of Zampa and get the knock into him again, and a lot of damage into Shrimsy. 2 down for Sonics right now, and it is just Tiggleton off to the side of it. He does get it down onto Hello Senpai, and that leaves just him and Finna fighting for the Bandito Crater.
If he could get rid of Finna, this is actually massive. That means that he has that entire rim to play with by himself, which gives him so much, not only information, but time to figure out what he wants to do as a solo. But Finna is not going to let that happen. He's going to be a thorn in Tig's side. Luckily, the circle is actually helping Tig push Finna towards him.
Tig repositioning to gatekeep, spots it out, gets a little bit of damage, but not the down that he so desperately wants right now.
Tig knows he has to get him down.
I mean, this is its own contained fight. They're down inside the crater. Nobody else is even eyeing this position right now. It's just the 1v1 for whoever gets to live inside the crater. A little bit of a peek back. You can see Finna doesn't have a lot of options, but he's doing a great job on surviving and really trying to utilize the train. Bouncing from point to point. He knows he's got to line up against Tig. Couple of shots and pretty equalized as far as health goes, but Finna's going to try to use this opportunity to crest in. He knows he's got the blue back behind him. Walks out and in the open, though, so now has to contest up against Tig. He's got no options to work with. Finna does go down. Tig gets the crater, and now we're going to start to see a little bit of a reset with everything still being pushed into the fields and the no man's land that partakes to.
Yeah, and honestly, not much has happened while we were watching that fight. I mean, we had a SDK kind of move in a little bit, but yeah, overall, this is what happens in these circles. We talked about it, Matt. Teams get set up and they stay there forever. I mean, look at 300. They have crashed and been on the bottom side of Oath's compound for pretty much 3 circles at this point.
You can see just how terrible it is if you're in those field positions. The other one's coming rolling in for shoot to kill, says, well, okay, that one kind of sucks, but maybe we can make it over to this other one. And it looks like that's what they're going to opt into doing right now. Tons of shots. Look down at that mini-map. So many teams that are shooting at him right now. 8 teams, 26 still alive. But really, it's just in the north, a spattering of teams just trying to cling to whatever cover they can find. Then Oath's Hillside compound with 2 different teams stacked up on the kind of the on-ramps into it.
Which is... It's really hard to be a team in that position because you have 2 options. Obviously, you can push and try to clear the teams out from underneath you, or in this case, underneath and on top, because there's another team to the west. Or you can just hang out, which is what Oath has kind of decided to do. They have a good spread on the compound. There is no realistic way that one of those teams should be able to just sneak up on them. If anything, Oath should see that it's going to be a fight and then reposition the other members who are spread out to look at other angles. But we're also not seeing a lot of aggression, to be honest, from the other teams that are around them, and that is going to throw a massive wrench in the 3 teams' plans that are currently on the south side, specifically Oath, who is now sandwiched.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Crash feels like they might have the opportunity to move first, and I don't blame them. Usually, if you can get into a position right there and then try to gatekeep out the other ones that make their way in, you have a lot of options to work with. If all of these teams just kind of stack up and wait for the other one to make the first play, it just turns into like the worst game of chicken where the blue zone's coming in, nobody can move, you really can't fight each other because of vision, and you just end up destroying each other.
Yep. It happens all the time, Matt. Absolutely. Tig, meanwhile, though, still has quite a bit of area to play, actually. He doesn't have to move off this crater, and the big thing for him is he can now start to pick off, as you're seeing, players from a Crash, as well as anyone else that may try to sneak up under him and try to get positioned in the circle currently out. And now look at 22 Esports getting aggressive on Young Kings.
Boy, they want that shack, and Young King's just desperately trying to cling to it. A lot of shots coming into it. It's pretty close to the center, and that's why you see a couple people vying for it. Off the side, Shoot to Kill is also harassing in, and do manage to connect into a shot on a Vinny, get a knock onto him. Now, Rogi has to retreat from this point, throw down a couple of smokes, slow it down just a little bit more, and see if he can get his teammate back up.
That was a lot of flashes, and they did not push on that. I mean, that was 4 pretty much just, I don't want to say useless, because obviously it delayed Hyagen from peeking, but I mean, I think 1 or 2 would have been fine.
Tig now looking in the direction of Shoot to Kill, realizing the fact that he has a couple of opportunities inside that. Fresh already made their move, but looks like the Oath 300 fight is finally starting to break out as Oath does hear what's going on. They know the fact that they have the hillside to play, but look at how close 300 is to him. Throwables now coming down, frag grenades just landing on top of him. Reload trying to go for a little bit more of an aggressive play onto it, but just having to duck over every single one of the grenades that are rolling through this. Keep in mind, once Oath crests this hillside, that means that Tig is going to have vision on what's happening as well. Lines up to the side, but Reload does manage to connect with that one. Now looking down into the flames in front of him, accidentally steps on a Molotov, and that's going to be a big problem.
And what a rough spot. Like I said, Oath was pinched. It wasn't just one team that they had to take care of. It was 2, and Neferhor, again, back-to-back games having huge impacts on these fights.
Kaishin, though,
unfortunate for Oath.
Point. Do they know? Yeah, looks like Neferhor knows what's going on. Gets vision onto it. Does go down. He was pretty low on life. Later, the last one up, just trying to commit to this res. Blue zone's coming in. Does manage to get him up, but now has to reposition. See, Kresh Kaishin having to play right along the wall is going to go down. And so with that, Kresh now has a little bit more control in front of them. But 300 running out of options very quickly. Out in front, there's not a lot of cover to work with. So they're just going to have to run from terrain piece to terrain piece, hoping the fact that nobody's looking this direction. Fortunately, Tig doesn't have the vision to work with. Zenith is busy caught up looking in the Shoot to Kill's position at the time. So that's going to allow them to at least creep into a spot with only Kresh being the only team trying to stop them.
And that's exactly what Oath wanted to do. Unfortunately, they had to fight multiple teams. But 300, well played. I thought for a second that one of them Vox might have gone down, but no, they turned and managed to survive too. The problem now is still this circle, which is pretty much left all but one member of 22 Esports out of it, or a couple members, excuse me.
Zenith eyeing shoot to kill because they know that they have a problem with him being in the position. We talked about the fields and how there's no cover. Well, damn, there's about to be no cover at all except for the little bit that 22 has to work with.
There is, I believe, a shack still in. That shack we saw that was pushed earlier by 22. Yep, that shack is still in, and it's open. In fact, this entire circle is still very much open. The problem is none of these teams can move because they're all gatekeeping each other. And as I say that, Nox being traded by SDK as well as 300.
While this is going on, you can see the Crash is trying to get a little bit more aggressive. Flex does go down and, get spotted out as well. Just trying to go for the Vi in position. Tig still has this high ground point, but it's not going to be inside the safe zone for too much longer. So right now, just trying to get information and see if maybe he can get something out of it. Fortunately, 22 seems to be caught up and looking into shoot to kills position. It's just Zenith that's trying to contest him. We talk about the profiling. Whenever you step up on those hillsides, boy, you can see what's going on. Zenith just trying to dodge their way, make it to the hay bale of destiny in front of them, and they do manage to at least creep through that, but they still have to contend with Purdy Quarter to the north of them.
Tig should be able to get in here, honestly, as these teams are trying to move in. He just has to, it's the timing. Timing is everything here for Tig. He has a spot to play below him. It's just, are 22 really going to start to sit on him, or is he going to get a shot from one of the other teams that are still actually trying to move in? So I really like, actually, Tig's chances here.
300 continues to impress and find opportunities to work with, sitting on 8 kills right now. Getting those kills onto Zenith now will allow them to move forward just a little bit, and they eye the guy in the sky right now. That's going to be Tiggleton trying to hold down the point. You can see it is a 2v2v1. Sonics, Tiggleton trying to make the hero play for his squad, but 300 to the south and 22 to the north are going to make it problematic. Tries to line up into one direction, but you can see the blue zone's coming in, taking a ton of damage off of it, trying to creep forward, but gonna go down. Now we're in a set 2v2, 22 versus 300. That's a lot of numbers.
Yeah, that was a lot of numbers, and well done, Matt. But like I said, I really like Tig's position. It was all about timing, and that timing was just, it was right when 300 was finally cresting over to get sidelines on him again. And now just down to a 2v2, and 22 Esports and 300 both technically have circle. I mean, you do have a knock the one Vox.
Oh, but Leda playing position. Looks like he knows where it's at. Trying to get a little bit of an idea on the approach. That means that the two are going to manage to regroup up in front of him. Godspeed, you played with this guy for a long time. Does Leda win these?
Leda definitely can win these, but 22 has looked really impressive, specifically Haston.
Looks like they're creeping up the side, trying to see if they can get some vision on it. Does Leda have an idea on how they're going to make this play around there? He's just trying to lean into the car right now, dancing around it, trying to use it for as long as possible. Got to be careful with it. The Molotov's going to connect. He's going to take a ton of damage, just creeping forward. Narrowly manages to survive, but should have an idea on where the two are at. He doesn't have the health to take the fight, and there you go. 22 Esports, 8 kills, take themselves around victory.
And man, they were in that compound for a while. They had to fight multiple teams, but they did get it done. And ultimately, I love the push that they got aggressive on that shack, actually, that the game ended on early to make sure that there was no one in front of them. So well played to 22. A hell of a fight from 300 since they pulled up underneath the Oath, and they managed to make it all the way. And also props to Tig. I mean, he was able to clear out that solo in Finna after that team fight gone wrong. And on top of that, he was able to get them 3rd place and I believe at least 1 more kill. So overall, very good game to watch. Much more exciting, I will say, than the first game.
Here's my thing, though, Godspeed. 2 rounds in, it's time for us to make these massive comments that are going to just make everybody mad and inflame them.
True.
Who's won our last 2 games?
I believe it was 2 Latin American teams.
Oh, look, there we go. Getting everything kicked off. Spicy Fish not being able to come live quite yet, but LATAM showing up in the end game 2 times in a row. Talking about the fact that they're going to make it interesting, and by God, they're starting off in a good way.
Oh, Matt, always trying to sell the... You know what? Just can you just be happy for North America once, even when we're losing?
I do get happy for North America, but every single time I get happy for North America, I cast a curse.
It's true. So you cast a curse the hell out of our teams.
So... with this, let's go ahead and take a look back at the replay from the last game. So, see
this was really
holding
nice.
down that high ground and this beautiful, beautiful fight.
Yeah.
Spicy Fish. Let us break it down for us.
Sorry, I just got really excited when I saw this again. This was a really great turnaround from Akresh. Simply Akresh, because I felt like Spicy Fish actually had a really good start on that fight, and they even got a really clean knock on to Sparking, who's rotating. But yeah, well played, very well turned around. 300, obviously, Matt. Why don't you talk to us about 300 holding a position in a...
in a rough spot for a while. But I mean, that was the decider for the game, if you think about it. They managed to push in for so long from that point, but Punij stepping up in a big way for his squad. You can see Tig also managing to line up, buying himself and his team a third place position on top of this.
Yeah, I was trying to make a 300 still holding in a, in a valley. Joke you made earlier, but it's all right. It went over your head. Went over your head. That's okay.
I know. I'm just too caught up in the moment, man. So this is why play-by-play casters. You can't make smart jokes to us because we're like, they're shooting.
Young Kings as well had a decent impact here on this road, but ultimately they did get wiped out. And Zenith, we didn't even talk about Zenith. They were fighting quite hard and really getting into placements from a kind of poor position, to be honest. They were fighting in from these for a while, as well as STK. So Zenith continuing to also impress here.
I mean, if we saw a Crush manage to get away with that sneaky play right along the zone and didn't take so much zone damage, I'm willing to bet that we might have seen a little bit of a difference in how this last couple of fights played out. But 22 played this so well. Look, they already know where the threats are. They threw down the Molotov. They did the initial damage. And while it wasn't a Molotov kill, it was pretty freaking close to it. 22 Esports, leaderboard looks right this time. 18 points inside that round. Back behind them, 300 with 14.
And what makes it really interesting for me is I like kind of seeing this variation in the leaderboard. Obviously, Spicy Fish, who had done better in the last game, kind of bombing out here. Oath is much of the same. I mean, this is going to lead to a very exciting finals. It's not that I enjoy seeing these teams, not have consistent games, but I think in the story of the leaderboard and what happens in the finals, yeah, you kind of want to see some of the teams at top stumble so that it makes for a more exciting finals.
Well, right now, I like the fact that we're seeing these teams feel each other out. That's kind of the big factor that I'm looking at.
Yep.
And really, what I'm loving about this is we're seeing nobody have a lot of hesitation. They're finding their opportunities, and nobody's showing fear.
Yeah.
Like these guys all monitor the kill feed, and they know who they're probably going to be fighting when they roll in. But everybody's still like, this is our play. We think we can win the fight, so let's go for it.
Yeah, so far I haven't seen like any player or team really like shy away for a fight or run away from a fight that it shouldn't have needed to. It doesn't seem like nerves are a big factor. It's really hard to tell though. Obviously it's just the first two games, right? It's just the start of the event. But I think also the fact that they've been kind of scrimming against each other quite frequently as well as going through the group stages. I think these teams are starting to find their comfort and they're starting to play that way as well.
That's kind of the fun of what we're looking at this event. We already know that Merge is going to be continuing on. We're going to get LATAM versus North America for the full year as we move forward with this. But we're at kind of like the early stages of the relationship where everybody's kind of feeling each other out. They're like, do I go for the hug yet? I don't know if we're at that stage yet, or do I just kind of like say hi, the hand, like the arm going around back behind them while they're watching the movie. We're still at that awkward stage yet. Here in a little while, the violence is just going to get more and more comfortable. These guys are just going to start going at each other.
Yep.
Double entendre, bam.
Gotcha. Really love, you set that up beautifully, Matt. But ultimately, yes, this is what we're all excited about. We're even talking about it before the game started, LATAM versus North America, now that we're sharing the region. And it's been exciting. I honestly think, again, you talked about it as well, that the new blood into the scene and mixing things up. We're also seeing a lot of really interesting roster swaps going into this. And ultimately, that's what's going to keep it alive, especially the competitive side. And I love to see it, man. It's been good so far. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Well, speaking of mixing things up and helping keep the scene alive and everything else like that, don't forget, guys, we're also on TikTok. So if you enjoy watching all the content back over on TikTok, don't forget that PUBG is streaming over there on @PUBG and @PUBG Esports Official for all the new content and all the new esports action. Make sure you guys tune in. Give it a follow. I mean, it's free. It's free content. You're using TikTok anyway. Just do it.
It's free. All the kids are doing it.
I know. All the kids. I can obviously speak on this fact.
You're still young at heart, Matt. You're still young at heart for sure. But you know what? Look, first two games out of the way. Miramar is out of the way. What's next, Matt?
We're making our way over towards Erangel and getting these two regions to line up against each other. Technically, one region. I always keep thinking about it as two different regions, but we are really just one region. We are the Americas region right now, and I've got to stop myself from doing that.
We are now the Americas region. And speaking of a team also of a Crush and Sparking, I mean, Sparking didn't get to do a lot that game. Again, a lot of people have been looking at that player specifically out of Latin America to make waves. Obviously, he did, and Meta as part of PGIS. But now even with this squad, I mean, a group of relatively unknowns, at least for me, I mean, Sparking was the only one I really recognized on that team. I mean, they played that really well. He was the first one to go down, and they immediately responded. So really liking what I'm seeing from that team and that region, which is now our region.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more action from those guys and all the teams that have been stacked up. We're halfway through the day, but we're going to take a quick break, guys. We will see you in just a few minutes. Stay tuned.
New battle station, 32 cores, and full RGB. Let's go, losers. Oh, must be my settings. Frames per second. This seems important. Damn it, my setup sucks.
Must have been playing on a toaster. Piece of shit. Hey, it gets the job done.
Welcome back to the ESL PUBG Masters Americas. My name's Toffees. I'm joined by Cameron and Clover as we kick this off, as well as a guest, the master from the last match. 6 kills. That is a wild amount of kills, my friend. Congratulations on your win. Let's ask you some questions. I'm going to start with this one right out of the gate. I have been told at least 3 different ways to say your name. So what I want to know is how you like to have it said and how you got that name in the first place.
All right, so I would like that you call me Hayston, and I got that name because of my jersey as well. Like, I liked Ace a lot, but it was like a way too common nickname, so I added the number when I quit playing soccer, which was 10, so that's where Hayston come from.
Nice, nice. All right, Cameron, I'm sure you have a real valuable question to get a little deeper with.
Yeah, we're rolling up. So in the previous game, congratulations on the victory, but you're able to find a very, very solid early positioning in the game that sort of catapulted you to that strong late game position. And looking at your group stage ordeals, that's a very consistent theme for you guys over at 22. Is that a constant process for you of just focusing on let's find a really strong early game position, or am I sort of reading in too deep into a fluke here or there?
We usually try to go for a really good position on the early game, but in this case I think that we got fed since zone 1 basically, and when the game just feds you like that, you can't throw your games. You need to make the max you can out of it.
All right, now, obviously, this is one of the first big events between LATAM and North America, and you've had the pleasure of playing for both LATAM and North American teams. Most notably, last year you've played with No Cap, with 303, with Yahoo. Is there anything that you think that helps bring to the game now that the regions are kind of combined? How do you take on the different metas?
I mean, having the experience to play for some American teams helped me a lot, and I think that it also helps my team, because like it's easier to predict what some teams are doing and what others aren't, because like while playing LATAM scrims we don't play against NA teams, so this whole week we just grinded and we studied a lot of NA teams and what they were doing.
Awesome. Before I let you go, and I know we got another game to get into, and you guys are probably fixing to win that one as well. Let me ask you, in your time with some NA teams, was there ever a player that stood out to you that you said, I really enjoyed playing with this person, or they had a crazy skill set? Sort of, who did you love playing with the most?
If I had to pick one, it would probably be Gats. He's U18, so he can't really compete at these competitions, but he's a pretty solid player, and he helps me a lot with it as well.
Nice. So everybody else put that in your books. When he's of age, he's ready to go. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting with us. Before I let you go, do you want to give any shout outs to anybody, any thank yous? Give you a second to say what you want.
I'd like to shout out to like every supporters that we have in 22, and we appreciate that you cheer for us.
Awesome. We appreciate you getting 6 kills in the last match. Have a good game 3, and I'm sure we'll see you back here shortly.
Thank you. See you guys.
All right. Big win for the guys. 6 wins. And he said it best, right, Cameron? He said, when you get the circle, when the game goes in your favor, you have to win it. That's what they did.
Yeah, and that's what I alluded to with their group stage. That was a constant feat of theirs, not necessarily getting fed every single game because that's impossible, but they really did rely so heavily on placement points. While being 4th place coming out of groups from Latin America, they were 9th total in kills. That's how heavily they favored placement. And you don't necessarily choose to not get kills, but when you do go for placements, you stay away from the edge. You're not necessarily given the same opportunities. And so being able to hold down a late game, get those kills only when you need to, is one of multiple successful styles, and 22 seem to be able to execute on it pretty well.
Well, let's see just how successful that's going to reflect after 2 games in. We'll take a look at that leaderboard overall standings right now. Clover, 25 points to Zenith.
Yeah, 20. I think this is actually the overall. So it looks like a 22 with the chicken dinner there. We can see and Rage had their chicken dinner from the previous match. But yeah, I mean, that game really helped catapult them up here into 4th place. And you can see as well, 300 had another fantastic game there, making it in 2nd place, got a couple of kills from that. And typically, historically as well, but 322 actually have better performances on Erangel. So to see them do so strongly already to start out here on a Miramar match is exciting. because we're about to switch it up to Erangel, and they can only grow from here. Look at that 26-15 damage for 300 to 1991 there for 22. Good year.
1991 was a good year.
I wonder how many of these players were born after 91.
Right?
Probably all of them, actually.
I don't have the math to deal with that, but interesting. Also, 300. That is just an insane, Cameron. 14 kills, north of 2,500 damage. I guarantee we're going to see a bunch of them in the kill board, probably, huh?
Yeah, it's going to look really good. And that's the thing about 300s is that they always get their due. Rarely have we seen them get super high kill counts. But almost every single game, if not every single game, they'll get like 3 or 4 kills here or there, and those do eventually stack up. There are some teams that rely on those heavy games that give them 15 kills, and then they get like 2 or 3 in the few games afterwards. 300 are not that squad.
How many players in the top 5 are from down under, Clover?
We've got Biznaga and T Plenty right there in 4th or 5th. And I mean, down under, excuse me. I'm completely reading this different. I'm thinking south of the equator. I think pretty much most of that actually is south of the equator. There you go. Tiggleton. I mean, this is exciting to see because I think, especially for us that we just got done watching Tiggleton's performance at PGIS, there was a lot of heartbreaking moments where we didn't really get to see him at his full potential. This kind of feels like we're getting the PCS Tig back. And that's really exciting as we kick off the rest of the esports season for this year.
Cameron, she pointed it out accidentally, but I think it's absolutely relevant. 4 of the top 5 are from south of the equator. Yeah. What's going on with the North American players? Why aren't they out there, capping heads?
Listen, it's only been 2 games. So the sample size is very, very small. I'm sure that even by the end of tonight, much less the end of this first week in the first half of the event, it is going to be more of a mixed bag. But we do still need to respect the fact that Latin America has really come out strong from the very beginning. Sure. I've said it before, I'll keep saying it, the gap in skill has closed significantly. I do still think overall North America is a stronger region, but if it continues down this track, who knows, I might be completely reversing my stance at the end of this event.
Well, I mean, part of being a strong region, Clover, is going out there and finding the talent where it is and bringing them on board. And I think that that's something North America's done from the very beginning relatively well.
Yeah, I think we even looked at the stats to see where players are from. And in terms of this tournament alone, Brazil actually has the highest percentage. It's because so many of the North American teams do have players from outside the U.S., not just in Canada, but we have the Oceania. We have even a couple of European players standing in from time to time. But that said, I mean, not to change the subject too much, but switching on to Erangel, we do have teams that historically perform so much better on Erangel. And for some of those teams to come out with a really weak performance on Mira, I'm really excited to see what's to come.
I am excited to see what's to come. It's just about time, but before we do, I want to know who you think's going to win, Cameron. Who wins the first Erangel match of the finals?
I mean, hey, going off of history, this is Sonics. They got 64 out of their 78 total points from Erangel. We got the disastrous Miramars out of the way. They're going to start capping heads. They're going to get those wins now we're on the green.
All right, Sonics, what do you got for me, Clover?
Sonics? Yeah, is that what you're saying? You're calling me Sonics? No. I actually do want to kind of give this one to 303 a little bit in terms of performance on Erangel, probably one of the strongest for LATAM. We already have seen them have some good showing thus far today, so I think they could take that and maybe go with a win here on Erangel.
All right, I'm giving it to SDK. Let's see how it happens. We're moving to our new map. 2 more games to play tonight and 2 casters to give you the call. It's Godspeed and Matchroom.
Thank you, guys and gal. And I gotta say, I like this terminology that Cam's throwing out, moving to the green, because it does feel like we've got everything that's going on Miramar, and then once we come back over towards Erangel, everything gets a little bit more chill. Talking about a lot of teams having favor towards this map specifically, and most notably, Sonics. Do you think that this is going to be their round, Godspeed?
We are headed back to Old Faithful. That is Erangel. So, to be fair to Sonics, man, I don't think they didn't have the best rounds, sure, in the beginning, but even the first 2, they were able to get at least a stink through. I think it was Tig both times. And the last game, Tig, I believe, got 3rd, at least on the placement points. So, it's not like they had travesty games. Were they great games? Not really. But, yeah, obviously, they're way more focused as an Erangel team, and we'll see if they can start to make that impact, because they only have 2 games today to do so.
I mean, whenever your bad games are managing to snake into third place and walking away with a couple of kills, that's nothing to scoff at. But we've got everything set, and we're going to start getting everything into game in just one moment, guys. We are passing that kind of halfway point for the day. Remember, we only do have 4 rounds today, but there's going to be a ton of PUBG action just stacking over through the entirety of the weekend. So, plane is now starting to take off, moving into the air. Let's start seeing how everything lines up. Godspeed.
I am excited to get into Erangel because, again, this is the first time at least a lot of these teams are going to be facing off in a competitive setting on Erangel. I mean, we started with Miramar, so yeah, let's see how they do. I mean, this is technically the first Erangel map of the tournament.
So here we go. I mean, it's a little bit to the west, but it's just mostly north, south. Easy peasy, technically south-north. I know, guys, come on. It's just cutting through the middle of the map. Just leave it alone.
Just let it happen. Just let it happen.
And no surprise, Gascan's going to go ahead and drop on a military base. They love it there. Going to get a couple of attention. Looks like only one other team going to drop along their location. With this plane path, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, with the map reset, it's that feeling out stage again for this first game.
I agree. I don't think we're going to see anything crazy. Specifically, as you mentioned before, this plane path is very favorable to pretty much everyone, right? There's really not a position that you could say that, wait a second.
But Kameshki, Godspeed. Kameshki, I want to drop Kameshki. No,
this
is so hard to get there.
Hold on, this fight has actually been going on for a while in scrims, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Poro has been telling me about this. Yeah, so this is, yeah, we actually did expect this. I'm sorry, we did expect this, Matt. We failed.
I want to see the commitment coming out from these players, very quickly managing to pick up guns, get in positions. Spicy Fish also in a little bit of a situation. Looks like technically Dodge in the worst end of it, as they're about to have a front end of a car coming after him, but got the fancy feet trying to get away from him. Spicy Fish, while trying to get it, finally manages to run him over. Starting off the blood, gonna go ahead and crush that one out, and you can see now repositioning 3 members from 22.
Straight back to the fight, Matt. You know what I'm saying? Let's give a shout out to the observers. Let's give a shout out to the observers. We love to see it.
So many of the tried and true PUBG observers that we've had over the years coming together at this event. So with this, you can see really it's about the firm stack and the numbers running together of 22 esports, just kind of looting as they go. But Crash, on the outside of this one, got themselves a little bit more vision to work with.
Yeah, Matt, expect for this to be a very slow burn. Simply because of the fact that not only are these apartments, which are just absolutely awful to fight in, but they're in circle. So this is going to take, I think this is absolutely going to be a slow burn.
Keep in mind, they're narrowly inside a circle. You guys can see the southern part of the circle over there on the mini-map. This circle is really far to the north, centering just a little bit to the west of Stolber. As you can see, while the plane path was pretty friendly, the circle did shift away from the plane path a little bit, and that means that a lot of these teams are going to have to rotate through. But like you were talking about, does slow down this fight. Nobody's really having to run through it, and that's whenever you see the fights around apartments, this is kind of the way it plays. Usually they tend to be in circle just based off of geometry, you know? It's that thing that everybody was like, why am I going to use this in high school? See, you're going to use it for PUBG.
Okay, let's cool the jets there, Matt. But what I will say is also either one of these teams are trying to prove a point. There's a reason for these hot drops, and that's mainly to try to get someone off of a position that you want to loot. And a Crash and 22 have been, they've been at this for a while. This is not something new.
Do note that we also have 303 just running a spattering line to the west of that as well. Looks like Young Kings Old Times got themselves a little bit of a situation going on in No Lean. I mean, this is kind of an awkward fight. It's his only contained 1v1 situation that's kind of going on. The rest of Young Kings are in Severny. Old Times scattered around from, I guess, all the way across Yasnaya on the road to the west of it.
So what I think also may have happened here is that initially one of these or both players came to just loot here real quick and get out, and then they saw the circle. Because oftentimes when you see someone, especially like at No Lean's not like the biggest impact, compound unless circle is here, in which case you can then start to either camp rotations or just get a really solid foothold onto the Stalber Mountain. But yeah, I think because of circle, these two players have now locked themselves into a 1v1 to essentially either try to win that or wait long enough for their team to come, and then they can start playing off this position.
Well, one of them knows that they're there, and the other one does not.
Oh, you
Shot's going to connect a little bit. Is he going to get it down? He's been so patient with this one. Finally gets it. But the rest of Old Time's coming through. Are they going to provide any support? They say, hell no. You're on your own. You're dead. Just runs out and leaves him to die in No Lean.
And just like that, looks like Young Kings potentially have. What surprised me actually is that the other member from. Who was that actually?
Old Times?
It was Junkosh actually just decided to leave. He just decided to completely, yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Didn't
Sorry, I just had to point that out. Yeah, he just didn't want to have anything to do with that at all.
I'm about what you're bringing with your weapon loadout right now. I know it's just because options are limited, but if you're in a close range fight, that's a pretty fun setup.
Do not hate on an early game ump. Do not.
I do not. This is where I love this. 2x and everything. This guy has got a commitment to spray faces. So it's about holding angles really around stairs as well whenever looking at these apartments. So still going to be the slow burn over there. Sonic's going to be rotating around them. 303 firmly regrouping. Most teams leaning up along the Stolber hillside. No surprise involved in that. Zenith actually looks like they might be playing very far to the east of Stolber hillside. Kind of creeping their way up all the way to the top.
I honestly like that. The fact that Zenith is taking their they're taking their time. They're getting in a position where they know they're not going to be in the immediate rotation shuffle, so they're not in danger of getting crashed by multiple teams or fighting between multiple teams. And I think ultimately the east side of Stolber is the best way to work in, especially if you have a Stolber-centric mountain circle, which we have right now.
Well, looks like it's getting a little bit more about the information gathering process. Kreshe really wants to make the play off of this one. Biznaga still just harassing the backside of it, feeding the information over towards his teammates. So, when you're playing in this position, you got to be a little bit careful about it. And I do like the fact that there's at least one member separated out for 22 to just provide that insight on how people might be assaulting this position. 303 doesn't want anything to do with what was going on in apartments, so cutting a path over into the hillside. It's going to be rolling through back into the west of Stolber, really, running by that no-lean fight we saw just a second ago. Young Kings is running a 2-2 split, but Kresh starting to get a little bit more antsy about this one. Now has control over the top, the roof itself. Looks like the first floor as well. Sparking's got himself the pump action, taking corners very carefully, and this is where Vision's going to start popping between them. But right as soon as that happens, Flashbang's going to deny all that vision. So now going to be stepping into it, and look at the aggression. They're aware that they got control over it. Now Kresh, coming from the roof, has to play this one carefully. They don't know where the angles are and how they have to push into this. Instead, pumps the brakes immediately and realizing this is not going in their favor.
No, it's not. And even still, even if a Kresh wins this fight or 22 just straight out wipes them in a kind of 4 players to none scenario here, I'm still not sure that a Kresh would even back off of this. I mean, we saw before with a team that Sparking had, you know, he's tends to be fairly aggressive and one-track minded, and if he wants something, he goes for it. So we'll see if they pull off this. Obviously, this fight is still going on. Advantage definitely has to go to 22, but there's a lot of plays to be made from the elevation, specifically jumping out of these windows to try to get a play that a Kresh can do.
Flux just having to contest against the smokes right now and just making sure that nobody's pushing up onto him, because the fact that they know that the numbers can just charge up there. Instead, just slowly stepping away from it as they hear footsteps. And see the firm defensive setup now stacked up. Multiple members underneath of the stairs. Another one holding that little bit of a, I guess it's a window in that doorway right there that you can kind of glance up from.
Kind of.
I hear so many people call that different things. You know, like there's barricade, people call it. It's like one of the few specific small terrain pieces that I see that actually has callouts for it.
I think we just used to call it like the wall front door. I don't know. Yeah, but it's kind of an awkward call for sure. Regardless, what I'm wondering, Matt, is, you know, whatever happens in this fight, is this how much longer basically are we going to continue to see this? Because at this point in the tournament, this is also costing them points, both teams and position.
Here it goes.
Here we go. Push comes 22.
Look at the tight angles that we saw Kreshe holding, though. If they step into this, they should be able to at least, they might be able to get a knock. I mean, it's really just a pixel peak that you can see is set up off to the side of this. Seeing if they line up for it, tries to get some spray. One goes down. Flux managed to get it. Backside attack comes through. Now it is just a 2v1 situation, bouncing around the different points for it. You can see how dangerous it is to play around it, but Kresh does go down. The last two putting up a valiant fight against 22. 2 casualties coming over for it, and my God, how many more 2s can I string into the sentence?
Quite a lot more, actually. I can probably tell you a little fun fact here, if you'd like, about 22 Esports. They chose 22 because the founders love the number 22. One was born on the 22nd, and they always one of the other members always played with the number 22 on their jersey. So there you go.
In fairness, that's a lot more than a lot of the North American teams.
But the connection came when both went to a casino, Matt. They arrived on a bet. 22, and boom, 22 came out. So there you go. History behind 22 Esports. Courtesy of Luke Bodenheim. Appreciate you.
I know. I love Luke, dude. Everybody that's on this crew for ESL, thank you guys so much. Doing a lot of extra work, bringing in the information and the insights. So you can see Oath now getting a little bit more information on what's going on. This is pretty far to the east. I mean, Sonics are kind of lined up who they were taking some shots at just a second ago. Do have Spicy Fish playing this position, and then just to the south is going to be Gas Cans. So a lot of well-known North American teams all huddled up to the east right now and could be contesting against each other depending on how this circle goes.
Really love Zenith's position right now, as well as, I must say, Spicy Fish. That is a very popular compound, that especially that's not so much a split. It's actually a really wide split, but I still like that either way. The circle is going to shift, Matt. We are going to go north, which means that pretty much all these teams are actually in. It's really just Gas Cans, Oath, and Sonics who are now rotating over towards the east side. And I'm actually curious which team is going to take hard north. I also really, really, really like Enrage's position as well.
Dodge being the only team that's still leaning into Yazaya, thinking the fact that there might be an opportunity for it to come down to him, but at least firmly fended up. 303 just going to go ahead and find a couple of, I think it was one of the Young Kings members that were kind of holding up in position, so we'll go ahead and get a kill onto them and retreat away. Sonics look like they've got the inside track to get that northern position that you were talking about, but Spicy Fish, not content in position either, is still running right along the edge of the zone in their own factor, running parallel to Sonic's positioning. Oath kind of leaning out a little bit more from this, so that means that Tiggleton's going to be kind of the I guess, I don't even want to say breacher, but just kind of like the front end of what they're trying to do. Tig probably just trying to get more information.
Entry fag, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going in for the entry, but he's still super far.
But he's got to be really careful because, I mean, technically Oath has the capabilities to see this if these guys start taking shots.
Yeah, that's the thing. If this fight breaks out between Spicy Fish and Sonics, Oath will not only hear that, they can probably see that, which will give them not only time, as well as all the information they need to rotate just to the north around Spicy Fish and Sonics. They could even third-party this, so definitely a dangerous fight.
A couple of counter moves coming into play. It seems like both sides very aware of where the position coming through, but now Oath rolling out at distance might allow Spicy Fish to see them and think that that's going to be Sonics, who they were contesting against earlier, and make them a little bit lazier. Yeah, look, Keenan eyeing that position, not really keeping his head on a swivel and where the couple of teams might be encroaching back behind them. H1 does have the bead for it, but doesn't want to take the shots just quite yet. Instead, it's going to be Shrimsy that gets the opening knock and a flush onto Roth, and the reposition's now starting to come out for Spicy Fish. Couple of shots going to go back into him, not going to get a lot with it. Tiggleton does have a little bit of an angle to play, hits a couple of shots onto Keenan. Support now coming in, H1 trying to connect, but it is going to be Keenan getting to the other side of the rocks. But Spicy Fish, caught up in looking at Oath, does lose one of their members in that exchange.
Well, not only that, looking at Oath, but Zenith also is starting to get a little curious, heading out to see what's going on just north below them. So, you know, Zenith has also been a team that's been very active as far as making sure that their edge or their surrounding compound is clean. And that's something I feel like they've gotten a lot better at, especially recently with the addition of, you know, Vegas and Maluk.
I mean, let's be real. Those are two strong additions to any roster. I mean, the history that you get with Maluk coming in as an IGL is just so valuable. And then Vegas fragging capabilities has always been well known.
Well, Vegas actually also was an IGL himself. I mean, I remember playing with him and Penta and Masternook actually in Team California when we did that Nation Cup thing, and he was a good IGL then when he was playing with us, and he also found success internationally as well in LANs. Vegas has been in LANs with the United, so he has definitely got a pedigree and the talent as well. It's funny that we kind of think of him as a fragger now, right? Considering that he was actually IGLing too.
At this point, whenever we look at a lot of these players that have been around for a long time, it feels like everybody has been in IGL at some point in their past.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tell me the teams that you have IGL'd for, because I'm willing to bet that there's several.
Actually, I didn't.
You never IGL?
I was mainly support. Like I would help call, especially with Los. Like Los was obviously our IGL, and then when I played on Noble, Boom was our IGL, and then when I played very briefly with other teams, there was other IGLs. But there's always going to be an in-game leader, but there should always be members around that IGL to make and help with calls. Not necessarily make calls, but feed information. I think that's what really comes down to having a successful IGL is having a team around him able to support with calls and information and just really, again, be the support system. It's tough, man. IGLing is not easy. There's so much pressure, and you know that if you potentially make the wrong call, you know your team will go down. It's tough, man. I do not envy any of the players in that position at all.
But that's why we see a lot of times whenever people are talking about, like, who's the IGL, there's always, like, this joking, like, kind of us all. Because everybody kind of brings in their own factors to it. Sure, there's somebody that wears the captain's hat and makes the final call, but everybody works together with it. And that's why you hear the democratic process that kind of goes into play with these teams.
I mean, there's been teams in the past where they literally just had one IGL and no one else really put in input, and that's not only unfair to the IGL, but it's unfair to the team because they're not going to succeed that way. It's very unfair to put an immense amount of pressure and not help out with, you know, basically everything, whether it's watching flank or making calls here or there. So.
Well, enough of our TED talk about IGLs. You can see that Spicy Fish decided to roll right up into Oath's position. The circle did go to the south. Yasnaya still inside of it, so Dodge going to be rewarded with playing in that position. Teams are playing to the north, and a little bit of a, let's say, more precarious situation. Oath going to go ahead and going to opt out and playing into the zone. You can see Spicy Fish, Sonics, as well as Gas Cans all lined up in those points. Shoot to Kill also having to contest with a couple of teams that are pretty close to them. 303 Esports, most notably the closest one to them, but they also have Enrage that's up along the hillside that's kind of slowing them down in their movement. Here you go. 3 different teams bisecting right up on top of each other. Shrimzy's going to be playing the point position for the Sonics, but you can see multiple targets going to be rolling through into the Shrimzy's got more targets than he knows what to do with, and they're just rolling up right on top of him. He goes down quite quickly. Zampa's going to go ahead and regroup with the rest of the team, but you can see Gas Cans to the south now also having to contest with what's happening, and Spicy Fish just rolling and harassing teams as they're making their rotation.
Yeah, Spicy Fish they just full on said that they're like, we want off this mountain. We don't want to be involved with Sonics or Oath, and because of that, they're gone now. Meanwhile, Sonics losing one in that fight, and Oath now, the last one's on the top of that hill to really just kind of figure out what they want to do. Circle's right on their back. Actually, no, Zenith is still up there too, but they're in. That's the issue. Zenith is in. Oath is not.
Spicy Fish looks like they're going to cut back down. Dodge going to be the last team that's going to harass them as they go, but they've been coming in quite strong. Oh, that's not the point to hit into a tree. Oh, it's going to be rolling through, trying to go for their own shots, trying to get a little bit of style, but Kickstart goes down. Reload now the last one up, vying up against Tiggleton's position right down below him, but has to be careful. He's got a side flank that's going to be coming through. Doesn't manage to line up the shots, and H-Win manages to take him down. So with this, slowing down just a little bit, but let's not forget about our boys Zenith, who has a little bit of vision on what's happening right now. Lots of the Sonics members are down, and H-Win realizes the fact that this could be too hazardous, has to go ahead and cut forward, just rolling down the hillside. Luckily, there's not any targets too close, so she get a little bit of time to reset just by himself.
That was almost a perfect crash into that tree. When got it, he backed up into it, it crashed, it went sideways, which is exactly how he probably wanted the vehicle, and now he's safe-ish for the time being. But Zenith, again, really love how proactive this team has become.
Yeah, I mean, they're just kind of getting involved in what's going on around them right now. To the west of their position, it's going to be Enraged. We still have a couple of teams that are going to have to contest. The east is kind of calmed down a little bit. Zenith still needing to make their way in, but they still have a little bit of position that they can play up their hillside, so not too concerned with them. Other side of it, though, we still have Enraged trying to make their way through. Young Kings, we've got 300, Shoot to Kill, 303's Remnants that are all going to have to rotate in. Zenith, though, wants to be a little bit careful as these teams do have vision onto them. Shoot to Kill making their rotation. You can see rolling by Young Kings, who's not inside the zone either. Looks like they're going to go ahead, circle all the way around Yasnaya Lake.
Yep, and I like this rotation. It's unorthodox, but it also is one of those rotations there. It's not going to get them in a lot of trouble, or at least it shouldn't, right? They've probably scouted and seen that this is clear. They know most of Circle Edge, especially on that east side, is probably also mostly clear. And now they can, the west side, and they can just come into Yaz and take their time. Now, there are a lot of teams bunched up there as we're kind of looking at Zenith now, and as far as what they want to do, they actually still have a decent amount to play as well, aside from the fact that, Hwin is just kind of snaking there. They should have the east side to themselves. The only issue, Matt, I think, is gas cans.
The gas cans are going to be a little bit of a spot where they can take a couple of shots, but with this, they've lined up. I was going to say H-Win should have easy peasy shots, but they also have vision on him. He gets the down and the flush onto Shinboy, though, so at least gets to slap him as he's going down. Problem with it is they've got a very violent team to the south. It's going to be gas cans that might have an idea that there's an opportunity to be had to the north. So now Zenith firmly regrouping. Old Time still looking down the hillside. They've got Young Kings that managed to climb up the hillside next to them. They have to be a little bit cautious. 303 is still also behind this fight and could make themselves a little bit of a problem for whatever Young Kings is trying to set up.
What indeed are they trying to set up here? Is they have one in the circle, but N1FES is going to have to make a huge play here if he wants to potentially save his teammate.
I mean, he's managed to find a little sneaky angle to crawl up the side of this.
He has a spot, and he can make a play from this, but it's just the fact that, I don't know, 303 is also an issue. The fact that 303 also needs to come in is an issue for Young Kings.
I mean, that's a sneaky little spot that he's got to himself right now, but I don't think it's about reinforcements. Yeah, Koff is just going to go ahead and cut down to the south. 303 is going to take a couple of shots at 300 is going to take a couple of shots at him. 303 is going to come in back behind. Looks like Koff did get knocked and flushed by two different teams respectively, so Now just one member up, and it's going to be and one. But 303 steps right into the same category and the same approach that we just saw trying to come out just a second ago. Not a lot of options to be found. And one gets spotted out. He does go down. Teeplin's got to play this one a little bit more carefully, though, as he's going to go down as well. So now just one up for 303, and that's going to be Trisk. Not a lot of options to work with. Looks like he's eyeing to the south. But guess what? There's another team that hears this and thinks that they might have an opportunity, and that's going to be 300. Now rolling up to see if maybe they can get a couple of kills as well.
The way Neferhor and 300 have been playing, I would definitely be a little cautious about getting a fight with that team, specifically if I'm down a few members, and here they come. I love the aggression from these guys.
Box does go down, but Trisk goes down as well. So with this, Old Times now needs to move out of the hillside. The new circle has popped, and it's just a little bit to the east of the position that we're looking at the time. Old Times has an idea on where 303 is lined up, and now has vision on them. So instead, going to counterflank, and looks like they're going to go ahead and try to wrap entirely around the bottom part of this hillside, see if maybe they can line through. It's going to be one down already for Old Times. They're having to retreat away from this position. It's going to be Nerfer yet again. Strong performer coming up for 300. Box does go down, but the control line coming up from 300 has to be a little bit careful. They're taking a lot of damage. Leda creeping back down. One of the last few sitting on a ton of life. Grenade's going to connect with an execs, but not going to be enough to get the down onto him. So instead, Old Times gets a little bit of time to reposition. But Nerfer yet again finding the angle to get the flush. Spots out execs as well. This guy is just absolutely lighting up Old Times.
Yeah, Neferhor is actually cracked. He is really playing well today. I mean, every fight he's been in. And okay, Zenith, I guess, just takes care of gas cans. They're just gone. They're just eliminated. And the span of, what, 5 seconds we were talking about that? So that was really wild. And Headkick, also a new member here, I believe from the OCEs, brought into this team. I'm really kind of waiting to see what this guy's got. Nice shot coming out from him. But yeah, we haven't really seen too much from him yet.
Well, he's going to have the opportunity as Enrage is going to be in front of them as they make their approach. Back behind this, you can see the setup where we see a shoot to kill kind of lining up. They've got a pretty good control right now. A lot of vision to work with as well, but you can see how close now 300 has managed to make it into Enrage's position. So Enrage does have a little bit of a situation that they have to contest with, is up along the hillside. They do have a team that has vision back behind them as well. Now holding the top of Stalber. Opportunity is going to come through. Gubin does get the down and the flush on Toledo as his buddy goes rolling down the hillside. So with this, 300 has to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Already sitting at 8 kills, but there is still a couple opportunities in front of him at least to get one more. But God, it is dangerous to peek around that tree.
And again, Enrage always in a position to just be a thorn in these team sides. They're really, really smart with the way that they approach these circles and their rotations, man. Although there's only one left, Matt, the fact that they even got in that position to get a few kills and just kind of get a good foothold is, again, impressive. I really like what I'm seeing from these guys, even though they are only one member right now.
I mean, with the two up with 300, we've seen them manage to find opportunities time and time again. That's why they're contesting up towards the top right now. Zenith in first place, just 1 point back behind them is going to be 300. So this is a very pivotal fight for both of these teams to try to establish an early foothold and start building up that lead, because you can see back behind them 22, and in Rage, there's the big drop off. So every single time you see each one of these teams pick up a couple of more kills, it is going to be absolutely influential for how they're going to play it. New circle does pop, does line up, and that is going to favor right along the shoot to kill lines. That means that Zenith's going to have to move, 300 is going to have to move, and finally Dodge is going to have to make their way up the hillside.
Yeah, and if you're SDK right now, you're potentially worried about what one of the teams above you may do. They could push over and try to spill onto SDK, but at the same time, you know, it's possible that Zenith just goes for the push on Dureni, so we'll have to see. Dodge, meanwhile, is in a lot of trouble.
I mean, Dureni is in such a strong point right now. They're just chilling at the stop of Solver right now. They just got to watch. Everybody, as they rotate through, they manage to get a couple of shots onto them. They can inflict a little bit more casualties. The only team that could potentially contest against them is going to be Zenith. And the way Zenith has been playing, they know exactly the position that they want to go for, and it feels like it's going to be the top of this. I'm going to keep an eye on how they're rotating through, because you can see they've been contesting up, and Shoot to Kill is going to have to be a little bit more cautious with it, but they do get a crate to work with, and that always feels good for the late game.
Yeah, 3 helmet as well as a 3 vest, and regardless of whatever gun is in there, it's going to be good. Yeah, no, that's absolutely fantastic to get that crate this late in the game. And oftentimes when we've seen a team get like 2 crates, it almost is just game over, just because they have so much firepower as well as armor to deal with. We'll see if that comes into play. I really like this Mountain Goat action by Alo. He is unfortunately not going to get a frag there. They do know he's there now, but I'm not sure if they know that there's at least 2.
Zenith is lined up in a 2-1 split right now. Punaj has been contesting up against Ernie's position, so not going to be able in best position to really reinforce. If he does manage to pull off a flank here, it could be huge, but it looks like he's going to take a couple of shots, go ahead and force them back down the hillside, but you can see the firepower that comes out from shoot to kill near on instantaneously. Throwables are going to start coming out. Punaj is down inside of a dip. There's not a lot of different places for them to go. That could be extremely problematic for him. Grenade is going to connect. He does go down. Pretty Cardi manages to line up. Penta trying to line up just a little bit as well as Luke 12. As you can see, the two-man squad pushing down. Zenith trying to line it through as they go. But it's going to be up at the top of the hillside. It's going to be Panday that manages to find out, get the flush, as well as Captain, who manages to get the knock.
And that was kind of the risk with Punaj's flank. I actually really loved that reposition. The problem is once he showed his hand, he had to get a knock, and he didn't. And because of that, he paid the price. But Purdy also paid the price for extending. Now Luke steps over. He's going to fight Alo. 2v2.
Creeping around off of this. He's got 3 members down below him, but doesn't have the vision to work with. Penta does manage to line up into it. Now trying to feed that back over. Get Vegas some type of opportunity to work with. Looks through, decides to go for the flush, reveals himself. A little bit of a peek, but it's going to be Luke 12 that manages to polish it off. So with this, shoot to kill, and now has to contest up against Dodge's position that used this opportunity and this firefight to leave that low ground position and make their way into the safe zone.
Very smart from Dodge. They were actually in a lot of trouble. They were outside of the circle. Blue was coming up, and because of that fight, as you said, Matt, they took that opportunity. They moved up. They were able to keep 3 alive. So well played to Dodge, and they now find themselves in a position to definitely win this game.
I don't know. It's still just... Durrani has just such a good position in this high ground. You can see what they're looking for. It's really just trees. Trees are blocking them from killing everybody that's fighting right now. So everybody that's having to take a fight has to contest with the vision that's being brought from this high ground behemoth position.
It's also that there is also potential that, Matt, that circle shifts south, and they then have to come off, and Dodge and STK actually potentially in the positions to kind of third party that. So we'll see. STK, though, themselves, 5 kills, 2 alive. Good round so far. The problem is they are not in the circle, and Dodge can see that. They know that, on top of the fact that Durrani could also see that. So STK has a literal uphill mountain to climb here.
Should be noted that 300 now has usurped the position of first place from Zenith, just managed to cling to life for a little bit longer. Therefore, is down and is just bled out, but there's still 1 member up for that squad. So a couple of weakened teams having to contest against this Durrani's high ground position. Dodge being the most notable, still with 3 up. 300 back over in the west, still has 1 up, and then to the east, it's going to be shoot to kill with their 2-man squad, still just trying to function and figure out how they're going to make some type of play. They need to push forward to make it into the safe zone, and they have to contest against the 2 strongest squads in position right now.
So here we go. This is the play. What is Penta and Luke going to do? I mean, they really don't have a lot of options. It's pretty much it. Try to smoke their way up and hopefully not get sideswiped by Dodge and then not get completely pummeled by Durrani pouring over. So here we go. Vehicle's out. Penta's going in. He's going to make it to the rocks. Still barely not in.
Is it? I thought it was just barely in.
I don't know. I'm not sure. I think he just might be in. We'll see.
It's right on the line, and boy, they're hoping that it's in. Yeah. They've got a little bit of a rock to work with, so creeping around off of that. And with the lip of the ledge back behind them, I think that's going to deny vision from Durrani. So that means the fact that they can't really get the shots into him. So
this lets Dodge, though, kind of run up on them underneath. So that's also, and you can see Hello Senpai is actually looking for that.
This is a very precarious position to be playing from for shoot to kill. They're just trying to peek out. Any information that they try to gather right now is just a recipe for disaster if they take too much damage to the face. Durrani, though, now starting to get a little bit more control over the north, separating out. You see that, seeing if maybe they can test along that position that Head Kick is playing for. The last member up for 300. Meanwhile, shoot to kill still just trying to keep an eye on the horizon, really just up above them. And you can see how vertical this fight is, as it makes it so dangerous. You're having to really just flick so many different directions just to try to keep an eye on all the different movements.
Yeah, there's a lot of different elevations to pay attention to, sure. And this is exactly what I want to see from Durrani, to be honest. Durrani is spreading out. They're starting to take control. They realize that, there's not that many players left, and they have the biggest team potentially. And so this is what I want to see them do, and that's what they're doing. They're spreading out, taking control, bullying people off of their peak, and now they're going to slowly push down this mountain, especially with the next circle. They may not have to move, but if they do, they're going to slowly push down the mountain and start to just kind of impose their will. It's going to be up to, really, I think, Dodge and STK to stop them. I think Head Kick's kind of just going to chill. He's not going to play his hand just yet.
I mean, we've been talking a lot about the firepower that 300 can bring, and Head Kick has an opportunity right now to really harass the team that is in the best position with still 4 members up. But it is a hazardous position to play from, and already one of the members has lined up against him. You can see a 3-1 split has kind of arisen where we're seeing Durrani and how they're wanting to play this position over here. They've got one that's just kind of committed into head kick, and then the other ones, they're still just playing along that high ground. They're hoping that these two teams, between Shoot to Kill and Dodge, will just damage each other, and then they can just exploit that.
Yeah, but Luke 12 is trying to go towards that crate, not because he wants it, just because he wants some cover. Crates can be good cover, especially in the in-game. Obviously, he has some trees, he's going to get ahead, and there goes head kick, so Hikerman is going to find him, which now leaves only 3 teams left alive.
Oh, but with that, Dodge is now opting to play into the west, running up the hillside, realizing the fact that this is their opportunity and an easier path to work with the numbers. Luke 12 also gets it down onto Captain. That means the fact that a couple more opportunities are going to arrive in the position that Dodge is now trying to play from, and you can see everybody from Durrani is now just trying to regroup a little bit, trying to get the res back up, making sure that they can take their time off of it.
This is the
now,
time to make a play.
2-2 split has arisen in the high ground positions.
Yes, Luke, this is absolutely the time to make the play. You've also seen Dodge there on the west side start to move up, and that knock was massive for just this game, this end game in general, because I gave Dodge room as well as SDK. So here we go. Now Dodge is set up the double prone. I'm not sure he's feeling it, and Penta's out in the open.
Just trying to get the shots, but Captain is going to manage to get the down onto him. So now that just means Luke 12 having to hold this position by himself, trying to make sure that he at least holds the harassment for these two off of position. Now, he's got the cover to work with, leaning right into the side, but he is so nervous because he knows that Dodge can crest the hillside. With the positioning, Durrani has the opportunities right now to work with. They do get the res back up. Capitan has been doing a phenomenal job of just holding this high ground and harassing every single movement that's coming down below him. It's going to be on to Dodge to find the opportunity, and they connect with the headshot at a pivotal moment.
It's unfortunate that we lost Penta the way we did. Luke could not have traded. I'm a really big stickler on playing for trades, but Luke was just stuck. He couldn't do anything there. Penta had to take the duel. So now with that, they are going to recover the knock.
But that's so much information that's being lost. Having to commit into these constant reses inside of the smoke means the fact that they don't know exactly what's going on. Panda is trying to line up, gets a little bit of damage, but you can see now trying to leave this high ground position. Capitan actually goes down from fall damage. This is making it a little bit more problematic. Now just trying to push into the face of Dodge, playing around the smokes, trying to go for a peek, spots out one, gets the down onto him. Hikerman does go down off of that position. Now you can see throwables, more smokes coming into play. Durrani having to retreat from this position, but Luke 12, with as close as they're getting, has a side flank angle onto this and can turn the game on its head.
Oh, Luke is actually in a massive position here. This could be the game. He could potentially find himself the dub. They're also focused on Finna and Dodge. Luke is coming in behind. He's going to find a knock.
Gets it down onto one, sprays into the second one, a little bit of assistance, does manage to tick it off. So now we're in a 1v1 positioning right now, just between each one of these teams having one member up. Trying to peek around it. Durrani has to play this one carefully. Luke 12's revealed his position, but out in the open, gonna spot him out real quick. Luke 12 still just trying to hold up for his team. Spots it out, lined up, tree versus rock, right along the edge of the zone.
Luke center of circle.
He's closer to the center of the circle, though, so all pressure now switching over to Durrani. They've been holding the high ground, but finally now having to fight their way from the low ground position. Smoke's being thrown right into the face of Luke 12, who's going to try to use it for cover. Counterplay around this, waiting to see where the peak is going to be coming from. Has a read onto it, has an idea for it, keeping the eye off of position. Luke 12 keeps the composure and clutches up the victory.
Luke 12, what a play, but look, we have plenty of time, and we will talk about Luke, but I also really must talk to Dodge and the way they even made that game possible. The fact that they got those early knocks, they decided to push the west side of the circle instead of potentially going and trying to get the duo that was SDK before Penta went down. Whew, what a game. And then Luke 12 then coming in, realizing, I will say also that I feel like there was a bit of hesitation on Durrani's side. They could have gotten a little more aggressive and then wiped out because they knew that the majority of the players were on Dodge's side there to the west. They could have gone for that, played a little more aggressive. Instead, they split their attention, which initially was good, but once they got fed the information that STK was on their east, I think they should have switched sides. They would have should have gone for Dodge. That potentially could have been the game. But
you saw that Shoot to Kill was continually harassing that high ground position. Capitan going down multiple times, having a lot of trouble based off of it. And that whenever you sit down, and we don't get a chance to talk about this a lot, but if you commit into going for a res at that late game position, that's essentially two members that are just out of knowledge. There's a smoke on top of them. That means that the rest of your team has to pick up and fight and defend everything. And with the 2-2 split that we saw, that means that they didn't get a real chance. They had Dodge already in too close of a position, so they really couldn't keep an eye on what was going on with Shoot to Kill, which was the other duo's job.
And to be fair, it's easy for us to sit here and be like, oh, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But at the same time, Drenny also played a good game. And I'm not trying to take that away from them. It's just like that, the way that played out, the decisions made by Dodge as well as Luke trying to get over. I mean, that was just that was a hell of an ending. And it's always exciting to see a solo win a game, especially in a game where it was a solo versus a full 4 stack and then a 3 stack.
Yeah, I mean, shoot to kill never stopped. We saw them, again, they're the ones that got that opening knock onto Capitan to allow the repositions. They had to sacrifice Pinta to do it, but never afraid to give up inside of it. And, Dodge,
this was out of control.
There's the start to it, gets the knock on it, gets the run over.
Lamp died immediately, right? So Dodge was playing that as a 3v, you know, they were playing it as 3-man the entire time. This fight, I mean, again, fighting in apartments sucks. It's hard to break down because I just don't know how much longer these two teams are going to continue to test for this drop spot.
In my heart, I want to hope for forever because, man, apartments fights are so fun to watch. Just the weapon diversity that comes into play. You can see how difficult it is to pick it up. And we all know, we've all made those hot drops at apartments, and we know how spicy it can get. On the receiving end of the spicy, though, it's going to be Spicy Fish. Roth losing their member quite early in this harass run-and-gun style that Sonics was bringing.
Yeah, it was run and gun indeed, and 300, again, have been incredibly impressive as well. They came out through this game, they were on the, as we see, the northwest part of the mountain. They took down multiple teams until they finally got taken out here. And moving back to STK, I mean, they were pretty much moving around around Stallbar on the east side the entire game. They were taking fights, they were getting picked off piece by piece, but they still kept amassing those points and kills. And man, what a game. What a game for Luke.
I mean, it was a needed game. We were starting to have a conversation about, you know, how the points are breaking down and how there's starting to be a little bit of a gap that's developing between those first two teams. Luke clutching up right here and in such a hazardous position. I mean, it's a 7v1 right now, essentially, for Luke. And he figures out how to navigate it perfectly.
He does, and it was patience, and it was also these knocks. I mean, the fact that Drenny was finally starting to get a little aggressive on Dodge, this is what I was talking about. I think it happened a little too late, but gave Luke that open door to kind of come in and just get, not only sweep some kills, because he got some knocks and kills, but he also won the final game because he had the circle, he had the center.
But a huge game coming up for so many of these teams. And you can see what it was like on the other side of it. Finna just trying to find the angle to play around. Nothing to really work with off of it. But again, I love how Luke pushes through the smoke that was thrown to block his vision and just says, nah, I have confidence in myself into a 1v1 situation. I know I can outgun you, and proves it. So shoots a kill, walking away with a massive 17 points for that round.
Yeah, and look at 300. I mean, I think they were eliminated in fifth or fourth, and overall they were second because they had 11 kills. I mean, they were just constantly going up that west side of the mountain and just fragging everybody in front of them. And then Dodge to start that game with just 3 members to make it all the way to the end game there. And the decision to push Drenny and get those knocks also almost set them up for the win as well. So really, really happy to see those guys. Zenith obviously played well, and Sonics just getting some kills where they could.
Don't be sleeping on Dodge and Zenith, though. These guys managing to pick up more and more kills are going to be huge for them. Sure, Zenith didn't get the amount of points that they wanted to, but we saw it was neck and neck based off of positioning. 300 up there. I love the fact that we're seeing so many of these new teams, Godspeed, just step up in very pivotal points and really contesting the top of the leaderboard already. That just shows confidence and really just knowledge in the game. Sure, these teams are new. There's a lot of people on them that we're familiar with.
Sure.
But whenever you switch it up and you really just kind of rearrange these players, it creates a whole new team dynamic and play style.
Well, it does, and sometimes for better or worse. Obviously, teams have honeymoon periods, and other teams, especially when they bring in new players, sometimes don't have honeymoon periods, and it actually takes longer, but they get better over time. So it's interesting to see which one of these teams are starting to feel that effect. The honeymoon phase, I believe Clover and the Desk talked about it earlier as well. But overall, I think that so far, you know, this event has been pretty good. I haven't seen many travesty games for any of these teams. Not someone I'm talking about, like, man, they really need to step up. But one team that I was actually looking for in that game was Oath. I thought Oath had a really good flank kind of going up towards the north side of Stallbar, and they kind of didn't really get that going. Regardless, though, going into the last game, I do expect Oath to come in big with points.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like your last statement for the day, right? You want to try to step in, really just make sure that everybody has like an idea on what you're trying to bring and kind of cement it in. Like we've been talking about, like the hot drops that are happening around apartments. These are all different factors, and you want teams to respect you and have a little bit of fear of you. And I got to say, with kind of the merge that's going on between LATAM and North America, this lobby feels really strong, and I'm looking forward to see the constant progression between these teams, because think about, a lot of these teams don't have a lot of experience playing in this situation because of roster swaps, new situations that we're seeing rising. So if anything, there's still more opportunity for all of these teams to grow.
Well, I also think that the really big thing here for Latin America is the fact that they get to regularly play against us now. The fact that they're now included in our region, because for the most part, Latin America really was just playing against Latin America. Then they got invited to, or they qualified regardless of which one, for a few international events. They kind of got to showcase something, but then again, they didn't really. I think with PGIS and now this, Latin America's on the come up for sure. And I think the fact that they're starting to get exposure against a lot of our top talent, and they're getting better and better, they're a serious threat, man. I'm watching the Latin American teams. It's actually really, really fun.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to go ahead and take our last break before we move into our last round. Make sure you guys stay tuned, and we will see you in just a few minutes.
Welcome back to the ESL PUBG Masters Americas. My name's Toffees. I am joined by Clover and Cameron here on the desk, as well as a resident all-star from OCE, Luke 12 from STK. They won the last game, and we're going to ask them some questions. So let's jump right into it. Luke, welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm going to start out by asking about the end of that match. As we watched it, Penta go dead, and I thought it's over for STK. Did you feel the same, or was that moment where you're like, this is it, I see the openings? Tell me about it.
It's that's the time where you got to clutch up. Teammates were getting on me earlier on. Got to bring the clutches, and I just knew that was the moment that it was going to happen.
Clutch or kick. I feel that. Cameron?
Yeah, so I do want to dial it back just a little bit, even before that moment happened, when you were sort of just hanging out on that hillside below Durrani, north of Yasnaya. From outsiders, that looks like an incredibly uncomfortable position to be in. Did it feel that way from you guys? You had Zenith pushing in from the east, and I imagine like you had to be very specific on the angles that you can even peek or hold, because shots coming from Yasnaya on the west side, etc.
Yeah, it was a really rough position, especially when there was 4 teams up there at the end. The thing that saved us was the circle moving west there, so Dodge had to push to the west to 300, so we could actually run up the hill to Durrani. And then eventually that gave us the chance to kind of push forward and get close, and then eventually clutch it out.
Now, I've got to ask, because coming off of PGIS, obviously it wasn't that long ago, and you had to quarantine for 2 weeks coming back home. And I understand that you missed actually a lot of time to scrim with your team. What's it like going into a tournament, not only maybe exhausted from PGI, but just kind of getting in the thick of it and missing some of that time?
Yeah, an extra 2 weeks quarantining was really rough, but yeah, it was good to have like a little rest and a break, but I can definitely feel the rust, but I'm shaking it off and getting back up to peak performance.
I'm going to ask a little bit of a tough question here, or it might be tough, it might be easy. You guys came from PGIS. I feel, and I think you probably do as well, that you guys played actually really well at that event, and the amount of money you brought home on the check was not sort of where I think your play was valued at. Do you guys feel the same way, and how does that affect your training and sort of your approach to this event?
Well, I think we played a really good event at PGI, and obviously we feel robbed in the moment, but it only makes us hungrier for the future. So we're looking to have a really good year.
All right. Well, after that game, I'm looking at a great year. You guys did a great job. Any shout outs or anything you want to say before we let you get ready for the next match?
Yeah, shout out to all the fans. Shout out to Pankill as well. His dad's going through a tough time with COVID, so hopefully he goes through all right. And shout out to all the boys in OS. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. I appreciate it, and can't wait to see what you guys have in store for the next match. Have a good evening.
Later.
And you know what? I'll follow up. Shout out to Pankill's dad. I've had family members be very sick with this, and it stinks. So we're all sending thoughts to your guy. All right, let's get into this. Not to bring it down, but it's the reality, right? Into the game, STK wins. Who would have seen that coming? No idea. But they come out on top. They did a great job in Cameron shaking his head. They did a great job in that game. In fact, let's take a look, Cameron, at the scoreboards and where everything stands, how it all breaks down after that.
Yeah, I was about to mention that STK were among a couple of teams that we expected to do well, at the very least from the North American region in the bottom, but with that nice win, they catapult themselves up to 5th place. Still lagging a little bit behind 300, Zenith, and 22, but then if you look at the opposite side, we're still seeing Spicy Fish, we're still seeing Gas Cans. Not going to point out who picked either of those two teams at any stage of the prediction times over the course of the day. It is still a shock nonetheless.
It is. All right, let's take a look at a head-to-head. I'm going to turn it over to you for this matchup, Clover. It is STK and 300.
I mean, kudos to 300 to continuously putting in the work right now, sitting on 25 kills. But you can look at how much work Shoot to Kill's been putting in. They only have 9, but they've got 4,000 damage. And I think a lot of that also kind of comes to the fact that it's getting really crowded. We're seeing a lot of NA on NA, LATAM on LATAM action. And, Shoot to Kill's been up against Zenith so much today. And I think that's been part of the reason they've been struggling a little bit early on. But today, hey, in that last match, it didn't work too hard against them. So.
All right, we see the kill leads come out. Neferar up at top with 13. Headkick, his teammate, down there at 6. And then 2 members of Zenith who've been quiet a little bit, Cameron, so far, in terms of what we've talked about them, in terms of placement, but they're getting kills.
Yeah, 300 and Zenith, both squads that have been, I don't want to say quietly necessarily, because they've all been in multiple late game situations, but they haven't necessarily had those explosive clutch wins. We can't all have those clutch wins out every single round like Luke did, but Neverhorror and Headkick are both trying to contend with that best OCE player playing in the Americas region. And again, we have Luke 12 up here in damage, but it's still Neverhorror, it's still Punaj Shimboy. And when you look back at the damage that we saw in that head-to-head between STK and 300, the damage was stacked in STK's favor, but the kills were so heavily against them just because in their long-range engagements, There was a lot of damage, a lot more difficult to secure those kills, secure those downs in the way that 300 have been very successful in taking their fights in the close range. So I think that little snapshot with the full leaderboards to accentuate it even more shows a stylistic difference between both squads.
All right. So far, Clover, you've been sort of my map diva. You know what teams are doing what where. We've got one more Erangel match to play. What team do you think maybe has an advantage as we go into this last match of the day?
I mean, it's really going to depend on the circles as well, right? We've been getting some of these wild circle pops. That was a pretty northern Erangel circle. We don't see it go north of Yaz too often. That said, I think that some of those teams that do tend to drop center might have a bit of an advantage if they can stay alive early. I'd like to give Crochet some credit, but that hot drop going on in school apps is kind of putting question marks. I'm curious to see what's going to happen again this match. They've been hot dropping each other all week, but definitely a team I've got my eye on. Also Sonics for this.
Nice. You know, we never talk about, is someone going to hot drop, especially at the start of a tournament. And we mentioned at the start of this one because the whole week in scrims has been wild. Cameron, how many teams from Latin America had to change their drops coming into this tournament?
What was it? 6 or 7 teams changed at least one, I believe. The vast majority of them, 6 of them changed both drop spots.
Gotcha. So I want to ask you a follow-up question. This is something I noticed in the game, and I thought Godspeed made a great observation. He said that one of the reasons Durrani was so powerful was they were bullying people off of their peaks and sort of spreading out and controlling the area. But that's a term I'd like you to sort of get a little deeper on. What does that mean, and how does it work strategically?
So really, it's just being a big enough threat that your opponents are scared to peek you or just scared to try and challenge you. And in a game like PUBG, everyone essentially has access to the same gun, so it's all dependent on aim. But we've all been in those games where you try and peek out, you get a little bit of information, immediately get your helmet knocked off, and it's just, okay, I'm not doing that again. That is way too scary. And sure, that's more of a mental thing because you can just first aid kit, be back up to full. But it's a part of that sort of being a presence, having control and domination of a map is more than just your position. You need to consistently prove to your opponents that I am the dominated oppressive force here. I am the apex predator in this matchup.
Nice. I like that. You say we've all been there. Well, some of us like to just hide behind a rock, never try to peek at all, and then just drink a ton of boost to survive the blue Raptor. And it works. It works occasionally.
Are you talking about you, me? Like, who's under the bus here right now?
All right, let's do picks. Let's do picks. I want to give you guys a chance to get some redemption. Clover, who's your pick for the win?
I want to pick Dodge. I think Dodge has proven themselves to get creative, finding themselves in the late game, and coming out of group stages, they were #1 on Erangel, so I want to see some Dodge action.
All right, Cameron, what do you got?
I really want to pick Akrache, but that hot drop against 22, if they continue to lean into that, not saying we've seen a similar situation at maybe a previous 2-month-long LAN event not pay off well.
True.
Not saying we have. So outside of that, I do want to see Spicy Fish because we know that they're better than second to last place. They came out super hard in the group stage.
All right. I'm going to go with, I think the team you guys alluded to, they've been consistently close to the top 5. It's Zenith Esports. Now's the time. This is the place. Let's see if it happens. Game number 4, the final match of the day. Guys, this is it. It's go time with your casters, Godspeed and Matchroom.
Here we go. Last match of the day. We're going to be making our way towards Erangel, and boy, it's getting pretty fun up at the top of the leaderboard. Had ourselves a nice clutch to finish off the last game. There's been a couple of teams that have just consistently been making it into the end game. Godspeed.
That is true. However, I do actually want to talk about one team. I said earlier, right before we threw it back to the break there, that it didn't seem like any of the teams were having like really travesty days, but I want to take that back. Gas cans. Matt, what has been going on with gas cans?
I know, in this meta, I mean, which is kind of like the firm farewell to the super system before we move over to most chickens. I would think that this would be gas cans like moment. These are the guys that love to fight earlier in the mid sections, and instead we're seeing them play very defensive. If anything, I guess maybe they're prepping for the new meta that's coming.
You know, so the first game, I felt like they played aggressive off that push, remember? And then they got wiped by 300. And then the second game, I don't remember actually what happened to them, but even in that last game, I mean, they just got absolutely ran over. So I don't know what is going on. This is obviously one of the teams that everyone was kind of looking at to be like, okay, this is going to be one of the stronger teams going into this, but so far, day one, not the case.
Are we going to see the continuation of what's been going on for apartments? I'm looking at kind of the mix-up there. I don't know. I think that we're getting finally a little bit of separation out as Kresh is going towards Georgia Pool, if anything, and might be contesting along where Shoot to Kill tends to drop at. A couple of vehicles coming in. You can see that it's going to be picked up by both sides, while Zenith is still continuing to drop in the distance.
Wait a second.
What?
Do my eyes deceive me? There was no drop? There's no hot drop?
Yeah, no. Crash decided to go over to Georgia Pool area. It looks like they're kind of south of Hospital is where they're
very well
going.
Yeah. Okay,
and get rewarded with it. Look at that circle. They're pretty much in the center as well. Hey, look, circle's just going to follow them wherever they go. Might as well get somewhere comfy.
Yeah, is Cameron watching? Cameron, hello, here's your chance. You said you didn't want to pick him because of the hot drop, but a Crash in a very nice center position on this circle, currently just south of Shoot to Kill. Okay. And then again, we have Enrage in a very nice position here on the north side. Crossing that bridge should be maybe a little obnoxious, but if they cross early, you know, go towards the crates, I'm sure they'll get a decent position as well. And again, Enrage is a team that I'm very much looking at right now, Matt, simply because even though the last couple of games didn't get as many kills or the position they wanted, they're always in a very smart rotational advantage position. You know what I'm saying, Matt? They're always where they need to be and where they need to rotate. The problem is they don't always win all the fights.
Oh my God, Maluk, I love everything that you're doing right now. Are you seriously just going to loot with a car rolling through this as you go? Please.
Yeah, no, he is. This is...
I don't care what else is happening. I want to see his driving skills moving forward from this point forward. He's even just bypassing the loot. He's just prepping for it. Look at that. Always thinking about what's going to happen next. That's Maluk's style.
That is Maluk's style for sure. So I'm looking at some of the other teams on this map here and looking at Gas Cans, the team we've been talking about the most, obviously looting Severny there in the north. I mean, they have a couple options as far as rotations. They can either come in from the north or they can wait out and come in from the east, but we'll have to see. Whatever happens with Gas Cans, I want to see some points escape for them. Because they have 2 points on the day. 2 points. As well as Spicy Fish, actually.
Crash having to make a play away from this point. Shoot to Kill has been like, what are you doing in our neighborhood? A little bit of exchange, but Sparking lines up against Alo while this retreat is going on with VHZ King. So now Sparking getting a little bit of vision on what's going on. Looks like he's not going to be able to get too much more out of that. He's in a little bit of a dangerous position as well. He did get Alo down to his north. Looks like Luke 12 is going to try to cut through. Good shot to get a little bit of damage, but it's not going to be enough to get the knock. Our reinforcement's going to continue to harass this. VHZ King does look like he's going to get in the high ground point, but I don't know if we're going to see this. Counter moves coming out from both sides. VHZ King looking like he has an idea on where they're posted up at. Just going to go ahead and toss a throwable and then get away. Doesn't look like they're going to get the best positioning for it. So VHZ going to go ahead and retreat, and it looks like that might kind of be the tail end of this unless Cresce really... I mean, these guys love to fight early, so they might choose to stay for this.
They do, but I probably not, only because of the fact that they are in such a good position in the circle, and there's really no reason. I mean, they got that knock, right? So they know that it's SDK. There's kind of no reason to poke that bear and push SDK when both teams can not only share the circle, but they can also herd teams away from themselves and really do a lot of damage. So I doubt they would kind of push that.
See Enrage making their rotation now. Doing pretty well, all things considered, but really, I mean... After everything and a couple of roster swaps, I felt that Zenith was going to be pretty strong. So that isn't the biggest surprise to see them contesting the top of the leaderboard. 300 is really what's taken me, is the fact that it feels like we've often seen them in disadvantaged positions. Like, remember that Miramar game where they just lined up, and I think it was Oates compound that they just set up against, and they were like, okay, we know everybody has to move while this is dangerous now. If we can survive, we'll be in a great position for later. I love the way that this team is thinking.
Yeah, 300 has, again, they've just been incredibly proactive and they've been incredibly aggressive. I mean, that roster, Headkick, Leda, Neferhor, Vox, there's experience as well as some fresh blood, some new talent coming in, and I think overall it's been working for them, honestly, so far.
Everybody is just trying to get that coast front property at the time. A lot of teams posting up along them here. You can see that SF made their rotation from Primoris, just went a little bit to the north. Enrage doing their thing right now. Not necessarily the happiest of positions, so they got to be a little bit more careful. Young Kings trying to make their way up into position, might spot out in check and how they're posted up at the time, but really it's just about information gathering, with a lot of these teams having to make a very long rotation into the safe zone because it is so far west. A lot of these guys coming in a little blind, so just trying to get an idea on what's happening.
And then just to go, oh, wait a second, shots coming out. He's going to find a few connections. And one, oh, he needs to get out of there.
Yeah, that throwable range is going to be extended due to the height, and he's going to go down, but Young Kings might be able to provide a little bit of support for him. Yeah, savable.
Savable for sure, and it looks like they are actually going to go for it. Young King's going to make sure that they don't lose one early, and I definitely like this decision coming out from them.
I like the angle on this. Koff has an idea on how to assault this. Going to get a little bit more damage into it. Crochet looks like they found themselves another opponent that they're going to be taking it to early. Sparking trying to get some damage up on Gubin as he makes his rotation. But look at this. Everybody from Crochet pushing through different points. They're just going to walk right through Enrage like it wasn't even a problem.
Man, I was telling everyone just now to watch Enrage and the positions that they choose because their rotations and their macro is really good, and just like that, unfortunately, they ran into a crash and they are gone. And meanwhile, Young Kings and 1FPS and the rest are still trying to kind of make this fight happen over here at Observatory. And they're going to back out.
Yeah, and one doing the reverse and the honk as he goes. H1 gets some vision on 22 as they're rotating through. Not really getting enough to maybe scare them off, so instead they're going to go ahead and claim the northern part of that compound, and H1 now finds himself in a little bit of a worse position. Oh! Rogi Wow comes through and just drives by, going to finish it off with the roll-up, just running him over to add in the disrespect.
That was almost calculated, I feel, by 22.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they isolated to win and they took him down. That was well played. And 22 is another team that I'm watching that has been impressing me so far today.
Yeah, I mean, they managed to find the proper opportunities and how to exploit them specifically.
Yeah, their timing.
The amount of knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah, the amount of knowledge that they move in and how they take their fights, it feels like their communication is very on point. Gascan's going to be rolling across the bridge to the north, making their way to South Georgia Pole. You can see, really, we've got a already prepped second circle waiting to go. Everybody just has an idea on where it's going to go, so positioning for that right now. Our latecomers not really having to contest with anybody that's gatekeeping these outer positions, so it's really just try to see how far in you can go and position up around that. And do note, again, while we were talking about fields beforehand, there are those fields that are to the southwest of where we see Everest posted up at, you know, just south of Hospital and stuff, where we saw a little bit of that exchange that was going on a little bit earlier between Shoot to Kill and Crochet. Yep. And that's going to be pretty much centered up right now. So that kind of like makes its own little donut. That area nobody's in, and then everybody is clustered around the outside of it.
And the problem with this circle as well is, as you said, a lot of the... Wait a second, Luke. Let's give him a second to see what he's going to decide to do here. He is alone. The trigger discipline. The trigger discipline here.
He is so far north versus everybody else on the team who's already been kind of...
curious, Matt, if he knows that there's other members of... Like, I wonder if he knows, if he can hear Adam's car, if he knows Adams is pulling up. At this point, I think he probably can hear it a little bit. But yeah, this is interesting that he's decided to stay in this area. And what I was saying as well is, yeah, a lot of the teams, as you were saying, Matt, were positioned already towards the center. But the problem is, especially when these circles tend to hard shift, especially when there's a lot of field in, those teams that are in the center get trapped because they were, you know, part of old center, and then rotating becomes a pain. So we'll see if that comes into effect as well. But Luke, yeah, just holding his... Just taking his time. Got a nice.
I feel like he's just
here.
feeding this back over towards his teammates.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. He's feeding this information because you can look at SDK. Look at the way they're repositioning on this. He's absolutely feeding. And no, not yet.
If he gets in that car, it's going to be trouble for him. But right now, while he's running around, Shoot to Kill content to letting him do his own thing. The shot's going to be coming out from both sides onto him, and there you go. Luke 12 lines it up. Nikos goes down. The car's in the way. Going to go ahead and pop out the tires. Be like, damn car in the way. But I don't know. I don't think the gas cans should go for this one if they get pulled into this trap. I don't think it'll go well.
No, because they have two. Never mind. I thought they had two. Yeah, it's still the one knock. But if they do commit, they might get another one knocked. This is probably one of the worst positions for one of their teammates to get knocked in. I'm not saying it's impossible for them to get him, but it's very, very unlikely. It's just not worth the risk.
Like how Nikos is at least making him work for it. Be like, ha, you may have gotten me down, but I'm just going to chill here. Grenade rolling right by him. Look how good the throwables on Shoot to Kill are. Even just over a hillside like that, managing to cook it to get that
I mean, are you
close.
surprised, though?
No, man.
Like, really?
I want to know, what type of, like, scrim practice do they do with throwables? Is it, like, did they just go into the training lobby and just find different random hills to see how long they need to cook things for every single time? Probably.
Gunnar, I'm sure, has a regiment where he's very strict, very terrible to them. I don't know. I don't know what Gunnar does with them, but whatever he's doing with them so far over the last year and a half has been fantastic. Throwables included.
22 Esports having to leave the compound that they pushed out just a second ago. Zenith decided that they wanted it, and Punage locks into Biznaga. He's going to go down. Hasten, woo! Oh, as he's jumping in, gets knocked. Teammate narrowly makes it in. Half-Life. Should be able to get the res, though, but man, that was costly.
That was costly indeed, as 22 is going to recover that, but losing a member there. Still in a decent position. Wait, Zenith. Oh, Zenith. They are getting aggressive.
They want it. They feel like they have an opportunity. They've already got the man advantage prepped for it. You can see that Rogue is just going to go ahead and start Molotoving out doorways, being like, at least slow him down for just a second. With this position, nobody is playing to the east of this, so Zenith doesn't have to worry about getting harassed from behind. There's no harm in this. They know the fact that it's a do-up fight. Really, just potentially a team to the north might harass them in 303, but Maluka is already holding that angle. That's how come there's only 3 members for Zenith that have made this approach right now. And sure, everybody on 22 that's inside this house can find little angles in different areas that they want to hide in, but you can see Vinny is trying to reposition around this, and everybody on Zenith instantly reacts to it.
And they decide it's not worth it, even though they potentially could have taken that, especially if they're fighting for the east side of the map here. I think that's good. But yeah, the split is now the tempo res there. You see Vinny leaving and consolidating back with his team, and Zenith pulling back maybe to get a different approach on things, and Shinboy's going to get knocked.
A little bit of a awkward retreat coming out there as Shinboy is going to be in a fairly safe position. He managed to make it back to the wall. Smoke should come
be
through.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Shin be okay?
Should be okay, Matt. You need to calm down. I also do like Luke's position. I think Luke playing on the second position in the back and Gatka North is also a wise decision coming out from the Zenith boys.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very good recovery from 22, all things considered. I mean,
yeah,
Zenith
that's also
did
true.
opt into the play, but it felt like there was just a second or two of hesitation from Zenith before they just quickly jumped in the vehicles and ran it over. That gave time for the meds to set up, and that Molotov on the door really bought that extra little bit of time. So that was very well played.
Yep, could have been very bad for 22 Esports, but the recovery was nice. And as well as Zenith to realize that maybe they didn't need to aggress on that this early. I think decision-making for both teams is quite good. And now we have Guadalajara Gas Cans, the team that I very much have been talking about. Look how much water is still in this circle. It's about to close, Matt. And this is, I think, where trouble is going to start to brew for a lot of these teams.
Honey Badger. That was a beautiful shot. I mean, you feel very defended when you're going for that peak, and Honey Badger still finds a way to exploit it and get the headshot into it. But with the amount of water you're talking about, surely it's going to go to the east. It's going to finally separate away. We're going to get that pop off. But no, still keeps a ton of water, still keeps a ton of the fields.
Yikes.
And hey, there's that new section of fields that we need to talk about that's going to be just to the south of Young King's position. So have fun finding a place to play with 56 people still alive in this circle.
Yeah, that's actually really devastating for this size and what's playable left in this map. 56, I mean, it was all about one team eliminated. Or excuse me, one team is eliminated, all 15 are still alive. So this, again, this is going to be the bloodbath, especially with all the teams rotating in on the south, coming in, trying to come in from the west. And even Oath coming in from the north may have to deal with gas cans.
I love what you're about right now, 22. Just run and drop it through. Just armored APC making their play off of it. 22 being a little bit hesitant. But the problem with it is they're going to find Dodge as their first targets. Young King's going to be on the other side of that. And a lot of teams are going to be rotating. There are in kind of the death funnel position, depending on how we see teams rotate. A lot of everybody, it's kind of like leaned into this hillside. And this hillside is kind of the safest point that you can kind of crash into at the time. Young Kings and one gets the down, but it's going to be a very quick pickup coming out from Haston.
Unfortunately, as well, Dodge didn't have anyone. They only had 2 there, so they didn't have anyone to send to observatory, or that tower, so they didn't actually even see this push coming up from behind. And because of that, 22 has snuck in.
You got to be a little bit careful with it because there are the other positions from Dodge that are back behind 22. So could see Dodge do exactly to 22 what 22 just did to Dodge in a very interesting mix-em-up position. A lot of teams now just starting to commit into their rotations, and you can see it's either you go north or you go south because, by God, if you come in from the east, it's as good as dead. Yeah. So to the south, it's going to be Zenith that's just rolling through, and it looks like they're going to go ahead and find themselves lined up against Duerny, lining up from it. Shinboy's just going to try to take a couple of shots, but Punich is going to go ahead and get the drop onto one, but he goes down instead. So now trying to find a different angle to play from. Vegas has an opportunity, but you can see throwables as far as smokes coming out to deny a little bit more vision, and they want to push this.
And look how aggressive they're getting. I love this. Duerny is going to have to realize that they're getting much closer for comfort. They just saw them pull up. Luke out of ammo, and he's reloading the car.
The Vegas steps up to the side of it and absolutely decimates him. There is nowhere to go. Duerny's going to get quickly taken down. There was a cost. You can see that there's only 2 members up for Zenith, but that gives them the very needed area to the south to have a little bit more control from because it's getting messy on every single section. They at least have a moment to themselves. To the north, bopping back off yet again as it's going to be gas cans. 303 are lining up against each other. We're also going to have Crash that's just to the east of it. Shoot to kill that's making their rotation, and the rest of 303 that still needs to come in from the north.
And Honey Badger's knocked. They've already lost Nikos. Just 2 players left. That's going to be actually Honey Badger getting naded out. A nice knock from Oldless.
That's needed right now to get a little bit more time and space to work with, but looks like 303 is just going to go ahead and commit into it. See, Junior still holding out the outside position for this one to kind of supervise what's going on. The rest of Gascans have to contest with what's happening with the 2-man push rolling right into it, but at range, Oath gets vision on this.
It was actually blowing my mind that Junior was able to stay out in the open that long and get that much information, but he was able to do it. And now, as you said, yep, he's getting shot over there, looks like by Spicy Fish, who have a phenomenal split, if I'm being honest, in this circle. And still, the teams in the north struggling. Gascans, 303, a Kresh. STK even not in the circle. Northside is going to be very rough coming into the circle.
Yeah, I mean, with so many teams firmly entrenched up, you were talking about the 2-2 split that was kind of set up for Spicy Fish. I mean, the problem with it is you have to assume that somebody's going to crash in at this point. Oldless getting himself a very needed knock off that. The grenade bounces right in front of his face, narrowly survives that one. And now you can see Adam playing the low ground positioning for this. Just going to go ahead and opt into the flush onto it. Crash does have the hillside that's kind of blocking out vision on what's going on in this fight, so not being involved in it. It's just these 2 squads duking it out at the time, and they need to finish this fight quickly because they still need to rotate. It's just going to be 1 second before the blue zone starts to make its way in. So Trisk going to go ahead and get up on top, get the rooftop vision, but not going to spot him out. Just narrowly missing Gascans repositioning off that, getting in a car. And so now Trisk, left on his lonesome, has to figure out what he's going to do next. Instead, it looks like Vengeance is what he's leaning into. Gets some damage, spots him as they rotate through, but return shots coming out. And Adam, what did you just do to that poor man?
He just laser beamed it with a mini from that moving Dacia, out of control. And now Junior is left to kind of fend on his own. And Circle is coming in, all these teams. Yeah, Gascans, nice little fight there, nice, decent little recovery, but they don't really have a lot to play. They can, sure, maybe park here by this rock, but everyone's going to have sidelines on that.
Crash Ace, looks like they've decided that they're going to make the push into that split that we were talking going on with Spicy Fish. Gets the knock onto Roth, so he's going to have a little bit more of an opportunity to work with. Sharpshot has to play this very, very carefully, but back behind him, you can see it's going to be shoot to kill. Also wanting to harass, trying to make the approach in. Shin, look at this, lining up off of it, repositioning back and forth between both of these fights. These guys do not care. Gascan's now getting involved on a different point for it.
This is wild.
Everybody vying for this position, and it's going to get bloody really quick. Everybody comes in. Reinforcements now rolling up the hillside. Spicy Fish back up to 3 members, and Akreshe has to be careful because they are targets smushed between 2 different teams right now.
And SDK is absolutely running up. They already took care of Gascans. This was 4 teams vying for this small compound. It's just an ice cream shack at a 1-story yellow. But now look at this. Penta, Luke, nades coming in, and it's going to be a knock.
There's too many targets, too many people that are coming up for Akreshe right now. Throwables are coming in and putting in a ton of work. Civ has repositioned around this and can absolutely surprise anybody that peeks around this corner. Nobody really has the best of vision onto this, so it's fully contained onto this point. Everybody from Spicy Fish now recuperating, getting back together. Akreshe, you can see, still has 1 member up off in the distance over there, and that's going to be VHZ King that's still alive. But he's in a not the happiest of positions right now. Flashbang's going to come in. He's like, fine, whatever. Can't see anything. There's a ton of smoke anyway. Circle's going to pop, and this compound is going to be in the circle, and that's going to make it that much more valuable.
Yeah, Viz King is not having what I would call a good time. When he's just literally prone there, he's getting all sorts of utility thrown at them. And I also want to point out that I really like the way that Spicy Fish has decided to play this. Initially on that fight, they decided to go out towards that 1 yellow, and then they went outside on the ridge and really took control. So also want to give props to Spicy Fish for really recovering quite well on that crash, considering they were also split.
Let's be real. There's a fight that's brewing right now that I know a lot of North American fans want to see.
I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
Shoot to kill with 3 and Spicy Fish with 3, and you know that there's going to be comments depending on how this one goes. Yep. 303 still has 1 member over into the west, but with the circle stacked up the way it is, there's going to be a ton of teams to the east that could be looking to this position as well. We've got Incheck, Sonic, 22, Dodge, all coming through. Alo does connect with a hit onto Sharpshot and gets the knock onto him. Alo running in, gets the spray onto Civ to take him down. Molotovs are huge, steps around the corner, and there you go! Shoot to kill, steps up. Alo in a big way for his team.
Alo has had enough. They don't call him the close range god for nothing. That's all I'm saying. Alo is nuts up close, and unfortunately, Spicy Fish did feel that, and STK is going to move forward. But nice try. I mean, Spicy Fish fought multiple teams there, and it was just STK coming up and cleaning up. But now we move back over to 22 Esports, who is still in this position that he took earlier from Dodge.
Yeah, I'm caught up in this, though. Sonics lining up against Incheck. You can see Zampa doing what he's known to do right up against this rock. Doesn't have time to get the meds up, though. This is a problem for everybody that's playing along this eastern area. 3 teams now stacking up while Sonics is taking the shots into Incheck. There's going to be another team that's going to be coming up back behind him, and that's going to be 22 that has the feeling that they have an opportunity to get here. Tig has to make the switch back over, runs out of ammo in his other gun. Blue Zone's coming in. Not a lot of opportunities to work with. Just has to play inside the smoke, but you can see not a lot of options as it's going to be 22 coming up back behind him. He does get the knock on the one, but there's too many members coming down that hillside.
And what an unreal situation. There was so many players trying to get out of that swamp from Sonics as well as 22 trying to come in. That circle absolutely devastating to rotate on that east side, and we're seeing that. Incheck now has the opportunity to potentially push on SDK, but they're ready for it.
Shoot to Kill's getting into that moment where they feel the most comfortable. They're starting to harass, reposition around, was looking into Incheck's positioning, but you can see Incheck really caught up and trying to get an idea on supervising the rotations that are coming in around them. Not a lot of options to really work with. They just have Shoot to Kill that's going to be in front of them in a very odd position around this road. To the south, everything has finally calmed down. Dodge being the only team that is not inside the safe zone yet. You can see that they're kind of making their way through this right now. It's going to be Young Kings that they're contesting up against.
What is Incheck going to do? Pablec's going to take a lot of damage now. Dodge still alive as well. Finna and Halo Senpai are in for the time being.
He's just waiting. He's just waiting for them to look towards that house, and that's going to be bloody for them. New circle is popped. House isn't even inside the circle, but hey, Shoot to Kill's compound that they fought so hard for is. Koff's going to take the shots. Doesn't get the down onto it, but the grenade should be pretty good. He should have a great idea on where they're positioned up at. Bounce going to go a little bit long, not going to connect with it, so Dodge now has to be very, very careful. Young King is still running 4 members just to the south of him, and it feels like it's all about gathering information for Young Kings. I don't think that they want to commit to this. Instead, they've got their eyes set into the circle.
Yep, they want to get ahead and they want to cut them off, and that's exactly what Young Kings has started to do. Koff obviously throwing some grenades to stall. As you also see the other 2 members of Young Kings start to take pot shots over there at Old Times because they're still not in. They are going to have to move up on this position, and arguably their biggest threat is going to be Dodge kind of from the side.
There are so many little awkward situations that are brewing right now depending on how rotations come into play. 300, let's not forget, still has 4 members up, and they have been having a phenomenal day.
Yeah, they're in a good position, actually. I mean, realistically, they just have to walk up, and they have a nice little ridge to work with there. They do have to worry about their south. You know, specifically, I'm looking at, again, Young Kings and Dodge potentially, but Old Times really isn't going to be too much of a factor, and they do have areas to play ahead, especially with 4 up.
0-3 positioning. I feel like they're just going to vie right over there next to the edge of the zone. You can see them trying to reposition on the map that's brought up right now. Shoot to Kill does get vision on them, but with Shoot to Kill beating into that, you can see that Incheck using that opportunity to reposition around it. Dodge, Hello Senpai gets the vision on a Yogan, does manage to take him down and get the flush off of that. So you can see Young Kings showing obvious hesitation as there's not a lot of options for them to rotate. Really one of the few teams that doesn't have an easy path into this. Oath's just going to go ahead and commit into vehicles and roll right in, and they are going to get themselves a foothold to work with, but Dodge really just trying to harass as they go. You know, they know the fact that they're outnumbered. They know that there's still so many people still alive, so they're just trying to take whatever kill that they can find.
Well, Hallow can actually make it to Finna. Finna's found a nice little pocket with some rocks that may be a decent amount of cover for the time being. We'll see, but I mean, they could stay in this game for a little longer. Maybe not Hello Senpai, though. He just got knocked, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, Dodge still has 1 member that's inside zone. Yeah, I mean, he's not in the best of spots, but hey, as these fights break out, there's opportunities to creep away. I mean, he's just
Luke,
hanging
last
out.
game. It's possible. You never know. It's always possible.
Is anything possible, guys? I feel like anything is
maybe. I'm not falling into that trap. I set that beam. I don't want to hear about it.
Well, Young Kings 300 starting to line up against each other a little bit, but you can see that the threat is Oath to the north of 300's positioning. Teams now starting to get in very obvious, precarious positions around each other. Everybody's starting to feel like they're starting to get in throwable range, except for Shoot to Kill, who's doing a good job of controlling the territory to the north. Nobody really contesting up against them at the time. Young Kings did manage to get that foothold position right along the wall, opposite of where 300 is playing.
If 300 realizes that Young Kings are there, which I'm not sure, I think they might know, but if they can get rid of Young Kings, 300, they would be in such a good position. The problem now is that Oath is starting to kind of snoop over and see what's going on to the south.
Oh, Snakers, perhaps the grenade throws it over there. Beautiful connection onto head kick. 300 now knows they're in some trouble off of that. Young Kings also repositioning just a little bit as they hear the grenades going off. Head kick down to about half-life as he's bleeding out. 300 trying to reposition around this. But while this is going on, do note that Alo for Shoot to Kill is also positioning inside this new safe zone and is eyeing into Oath's positioning. So Oath, the early aggressors inside of this, has to be a little bit cautious, and I like this. Very aware, they heard the reposition coming up from Alo and instead looks to the new threat that's the north, but it's not going to happen in time. Alo already gets the down and the flush onto Balefrost.
Okay, now what is the play here from Kickstart? Starting to move in. Again, they're still on the edge of the circle. They have a chance to move in. They don't have the most playable area. All you can see there, just to the east in the center there of Oath, is pretty much open area.
Oddly enough, Junior for 303 is in a good position to really hold back Shoot to Kill and is kind of stalled out how they're wanting to make their approach. He's just right up next to the edge of the zone and is stalling out Shoot to Kill with a couple of peppering shots. Now Oath has idea on what's going on, and you can see by revealing position, now Shoot to Kill is having a much harder rotation than they originally expected.
Oh,
Instead,
just going right
they're just going to send it. Luke's got goals, man. He's like, you want to fight against me right now? I'm tired of you. And Junior manages to hold it up and take down Luke. Off in the distance, Penta is taking a ton of damage, and that's going to be the fire coming out from Oath off to the side of it. Penta wants to get vision back over towards his teammate. Penta. Get the vengeance. He manages to get it with 4 HP. Last member up for Shoot to Kill. No more members up for Shoot to Kill.
It's unlikely that that exchange happened. I think just a second sooner, if Penta had got there, he might have been able to actually trade out Luke. But yeah, either way, they got the kill. You know, they got rid of the team. It's one more placement point, so it could have been a lot worse for SDK.
Young King's getting a little bit more mobile right now and trying to move into old times position. Oath still just kind of rolling around now that Shoot to Kill is down. The entirety of the north is open. So, hey, I mean, that's a very pivotal fight that they got a little bit of vision on, and now they know how to work around it. So in a much better position than they were a second ago, where they were getting potentially harassed by 303. But 303 is still just trying to keep an eye on them at the time. Very aware that Young Kings is maybe going to contest against them, but Young Kings is also really caught up in looking at old times position. So this has gotten to be a little bit of an awkward kind of like three-way standoff between all of these teams.
This is also a very unconventional circle ending, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, it's literally ending on the road. We normally don't see circles like this, so the amount of playable area, the cover, all that, it's not vast, which is why you see these teams taking their time to try to move. Oath, if anything, actually has a really nice little ridge to work with here. It's not in, but they should be able to do enough damage so maybe they can find a foothold here.
So with this, it's all about how the counter moves come around it. If Oath can really force other teams to continue to crash into each other, that opens up more and more opportunities with them. You can see that there is no 4-man squad still up and alive right now. Young Kings with 3, Old Times with 3, 300 with 2, and Oath with 2. Young Kings, though, keep vying around the shack position, the radio tower shack, that Old Times has just kind of been holding down. Old Times, though, hasn't been able to get a lot of information based off of that. Young Kings has been harassing them for a while. So with the repositions coming through, Young Kings is getting a lot of a foothold and a strong point to play from to the east. Meanwhile, Oath 300 in those position points where they might have to contest against each other, while Old Times is just hoping everybody fights it out and then they can step out to really just try to claim the victory.
This little play here, this little reposition by Koff is this is really great because he should be able to get a good amount of information on Oath here. Specifically, also, he can kind of harass Old Times. So the way Young Kings is spread out on this ridge, I think it's really great. I really like this.
I mean, they saw the terrain, they saw how to line up with it. Now they can take and harass into Oath's positioning, kind of denying the strength of position that Oath was trying to play from before. And again, it's all about setting the pace at this stage. You want to be the team that's making everybody else react to what you're wanting to do. By taking these shots at Oath, Oath now can't stretch out, can't get the control that they wanted to. By continuing to harass 300, you can see the 300 really can't step out either. Oath is having to bounce from tree to tree as they step forward, gets an idea on where they see everybody from 300 playing at, and that's exactly what Young Kings wanted. They wanted Oath to recommit back into 300 to allow them to maintain their numbers advantage and really just kind of referee all the fights as they start to break out.
The crazy thing is, though, Matt, is that Old Times doesn't have to move. They're literally the center of the circle, which means that all the other teams that are going to have to start fighting around that. Obviously, Oath and everyone else realizes that, and here come the shots. Here comes not so much the desperation, but the pressure, the timing. These guys have to start moving.
I mean, the wall's right behind them right now. Oath knows they need to hit the shots onto it. Didn't spot out 3 position. Finally managed to get it. Kickstart feeds the information that he got down on the box. Flush comes through. Now just trying to play around the smokes, trying to get away from the vision that Young Kings has onto it. Tries to step forward, but Leda manages to hold it up. Gets the down onto Snakers. Kickstart. Now having to reposition around this. Not a lot of options to work around. It's really just him lined up against Leda right now. And Leda trying to crawl forward, move into a little bit of a new position to try to catch them unaware. So with this, Snakers trying to crawl out ahead of the smokes. Maybe they might be opting into this res, but I don't know if there's time for it. Young Kings now starting to look into that outside position. Leda spots it out, manages to get the flush. Actually, it's going to be Execs on the other side of this as well. So here comes the push. Old Time's been content. Hold down inside of position. Cough already down, but it's going to be a nice bit of play coming up from Young Kings, trying to hold this defensive line right along next to this truck. Everything repositioning around this and actually going to lean into the res right now. Are you kidding me?
They know there's 2 knocked. They know that that was the play. Absolutely nice from and 1 FPS to get rid of Leda, but that was the play. They realized there was a knock. It was 2-1 at that point. Yeah, and they got the res. Love it from Young Kings. Man, well played.
They've got the numbers. They're just on the hunt for the last member. Exec still just trying to play around the smokes. It's just a matter of time before and one of the rest of the crew manages to spot him out. Koth picking around the outside of this one. You can see that they go, okay, this is where all the smokes are, so now it's just time to play around it, spray into it, and see if you get anything. Execs switching from seat to seat, trying to see if he can do something tricksy, but he couldn't do it. Young Kings, 8 kills and a round victory to close out the day.
That was very, very well played from Young Kings from the start of that end game all the way down to the very last moment. I honestly think the way they spread out, and also props to Oath and 300. We're fighting a really hard battle on the north side of that circle and the west respectively. So overall, that was a very good game to watch, especially that ending, man. Man, Young Kings, super well played.
I like how they played so much of that. They knew that they were in a disadvantaged position whenever they were vying against 300 earlier. They managed to cross a road, which we've often talked about is very difficult in these later sections because there's just no cover on it. They had to burn a little bit of utility with it. Then they managed to figure out the strength of the train that they had around them, played around that, and continually just harassed all the teams. And I love the fact that we managed to see everything work out exactly how they planned it. And that's what you want to see in the late game. It's not always about the flashy plays. It's about making sure that you have the knowledge and the control to win the overall round.
I mean, look, flashy plays are great, but at the end of the day, yeah, it's about the boring, dull, like well-calculated fundamental plays that are really bringing home the victories in a lot of these games. Sure, some of those flashy plays will come into effect, obviously, with like Luke winning that 1v7 essentially. But yeah, I think Young Kings played that very well. They were very composed, and also to Oath. Oath didn't have the best day. It's not like they had like a terrible day, but they also really did a good job of salvaging, especially in that last game.
Yeah, I mean, just shout out to everybody. We've been talking about this is the beginning of the merge moment. And by God, all the games were really good today. You can see so many of these teams stepping up. Let's go ahead and take a quick look back at the highlights.
Here we are. As this, of all the teams that showed some pretty good consistency today, and Rage was one of them, but this last game, Acro had enough. Sparking and crew just absolutely decimated them. And then even this knock on Shrimsy was really huge for Sonics. Or against Sonics.
Yeah, I mean, we saw early fights breaking out in so many different sections of this map, counter moves upon counter moves, and that's what I love to see whenever we're looking at how PUBG plays itself out. Just the awareness and the ability to take an opportunity as it is presented to you. So many of these players manage to find good opportunity moments, like Oldless. Look at what he managed to do with 303 and this awkward fight that they managed to have right along the edge of the safe zone. And oh my God, that dirty drive away. Oh, I want more of that.
That was gross. This fight as well, from shoot to kill, I mean, they just showed how ready. It was actually just Alo, I think, at the end.
Yeah, it was just Alo.
I want to say shoot to kill, but it was just Alo. I mean, he literally ran in and got the molly, got the nade knock, and just, he powered through Spicy Fish, which, I mean, I'm sure we'll get onto Spicy Fish a little later, but they did not have a good day at all.
That's a conversation for the analyst desk to have. We get to live in the moment of watching all the beautiful shots. Dodge, you can see this is, again, the start of look at all the things that Young Kings had to contest with as they make their way forward into this. Shoot to kill, also trying to harass all these different points as they make their way. But Young King is stepping up time and time again, trying to find opportunities, backs against the wall, managing to find these key moments and really these key plays to force these other teams into essential errors and take the fights that Young Kings wanted them to take.
Yeah, again, like you said, every decision that they made was the right decision to move forward and make sure that they were giving themselves enough room as well as enough time to make the plays that they wanted to. And
I respect XX. I respect it. I respect it so hard doing the seat swap around there. Oh, I love to see it. 18 points coming up for Young Kings, but back behind that, Shoot to Kill with 11 points coming out from kills off of that to put them in the second place position for that round.
Oh yeah, at all times. I mean, sure, they had the circle towards the last couple shifts, but overall, I mean, they were still holding off as much as they could. They were the target of many grenades and a lot of utility, and they were able to hold off till the last two. So well done to them. Oath again, salvaging that off the two that they had, and then 300. I pretty much have nothing but good things to say about that team today. Honestly, 300 was just out of control good today.
Just impressive all around. We've been able to see them in their decision-making process and how they move forward with it time and time again, finding successes in there. Also, Zenith, we didn't get a chance to really talk about them a ton inside that last round. But even in bad games, we're seeing both of these teams manage to salvage something, get some kills together, and continue to put up points. So that's why we're seeing them continually harass and fight for those top couple of spots on the leaderboard.
And again, I don't want to harp, but I really do feel like, and I'm sure the desk will break this down, yeah, gas cans and spicy fish. I mean, spicy fish in particular, I think everyone was waiting to kind of see them just bust out into the scene and do really well because they have in the past, especially in scrims, they've just been looking so well. But I will also preface that by saying, look, it's just the first day, right? I mean, we've seen many teams kind of had like a fledgling first day, didn't really put things together, and they could easily bring it back. So although spicy fish and gas cans both struggled today, I'm not counting them out yet. It's just day one.
It is just day one. So I got to say, Godspeed, we don't get a chance to cast together a ton. I had a blast with it. We need to do this more at some stage. But this is, again, the last round. We've got a whole bunch of things to look through. Leaderboards, I think that we've got a couple of things that we want to show you guys beforehand. But before we go, Godspeed, do you have any final thoughts for the day?
Today was great. I honestly didn't really know what to expect coming into today, but if this is an indication of what the future holds for us, then man, I'm all about it. Let's go.
Yeah, took the words out of my mouth. Don't forget, guys, we are going to the analyst. There's still a ton of things that are going to be coming up after this, but I've got to talk to you guys about something, and don't worry, I'm 100% not reading this off to the screen that's to my right. Developed by PUBG Studios, pioneers of the Battle Royale genre and creators of PUBG, PUBG New State will launch a free-to-play experience on Android and iOS in 2021. PUBG New State has already surpassed 10 million pre-registrations on Google Play Store. PUBG New State recreates the original Battle Royale experience and evolves it to the most realistic Battle Royale experience on mobile. In addition to featuring the most dynamic and realistic gunplay for mobile gaming, the game features state-of-the-art rendering technology that pushes the limits of mobile gaming. Make sure you pre-register for PUBG New State today. You can go to newstate.pubg.com right now, and I think we've got a little bit of a video we want to go ahead and show you to whet your taste buds. Go ahead and bring that up.
Welcome back. My name's Toffee. I'm joined by Cameron and Clover. It's time for the final breakdown. We got a few topics we want to get through. Some suggested by the casters. Others I know you want to hear about. Obviously, final leaderboards, all that good stuff. And then we're going to get some rest because we are right back doing this thing again tomorrow. So let's start with the standings right out of the gate. Let's pull those up on the screen as soon as they're ready. And you guys can look. 300 coming out on top. It goes down from there. I want to jump straight off, Clover, by asking you about 300.
Okay, I don't think this was a team that was on our radar starting. I mean, prior to this, they kind of middled near the bottom even in the group stages in terms of their aggressive play. But look at this, 28 kills. And Toffees, I got to tell you, they made top 4 3 of the 4 matches tonight. I mean, they were absolutely insane. And that's got to be something that's got to confidently take them forward tomorrow.
Below that, we got Zenith, Shoot to Kill coming in at 3. They got to be happy about that. 2 PGIS brands sitting at 2 and 3. Not too shabby. 22 old times. And then we go to the other side of the board and we see some unexpected things. Sonics in 11th. Spicy Fish at 15. The Gas Cans at 16. A bit of a shocking day. Now, before we get into breaking down some of the bottom, we're going to have to do that. I'll probably enlist Cameron to be the mean one. That said, let's take a look at kill leaders. And I will give it to you, Cameron, so you have a chance to heap some worship on some people.
I mean, we've seen these players, same players on the top here. This is building up kills over the course of this entire first day, and these players have been continuing to rack it up. Neverhor has been there at the top since at least game number 2. And again, just going back to what I said earlier on, 300, they don't get a lot of those flashy plays in the late game. They're involved up towards the final circles most of the time, but they don't have a win yet. But that doesn't matter because they continue to grind out those points, grind out those kills. 5 kills here, 3 kills there. It's that consistency that really puts them in such a good position. Now, in future games, if you put a win or 2 under their belt over the course of a single weekend, that's when we're really cooking with gas.
All right, damage leaders, Tig up on top at 2.1. Luke 12 right behind that. The real exception here, Clover, is Taggleton. He's winning. He's doing tons of damage, but his team isn't putting points on the board.
It's starting to feel like a trend that I'm really hating to see. I know the topic we started was whether or not the Sonics that we saw in group stage was a fluke. Something obviously still isn't quite clicking, but things are clicking for Tiggleton. It's great to see him on damage. And I want to give a quick shout out there to Shoot to Kill. 3 members up there on the top 3. I mean, we saw that absolute wild frag out by Alo last match. I mean, you love to see stuff like this come from Shoot to Kill.
Let's get into that. Shoot to Kill is a great seg into, we talked about the good, talk about bad a little bit here. The caster said we should talk about it, and they're right, so let's do this. Alo, absolutely, you are correct. Filleted the spicy fish. They've got to be gutted. They already feel like they're swimming upstream, and now it feels like this may tip the scales against them. Cameron, does this team, called Honeymooners, with some very strong personalities, have what it takes to finish this thing big?
Honestly, that is the biggest threat because no one has ever denied when this team was formed how strong of fraggers, how strong mechanically, and even with Roth at the helm, he's proven himself as an IGL, how strong, like, meta-wise they've been. The biggest concern was always, will this group of 4 players gel together? And that's always a concern for any squad within PUBG. Chemistry is such an important aspect. But there are some egos, shall we say, on this squad, known to be big mouths, big heads. So that is the real big question. They've performed so well leading up to this event. They top fragged the entire group qualification system, but now they're down in 15th place. This is the time that they're here to, I guess, prove all the naysayers, audiences alike, that we're not just a flash in the pan. We're not just going to come in and be good fraggers, but then once, backs against the wall, things unravel. I don't think that's going to happen. These guys are way too experienced to let that happen. They've played in way too many squads where things have gone south for that to happen. But we do still have to see it. 15th place is not a very good showing coming in from the first seed from NA qualifiers.
So they are a team that has a lot of pedigree for a comeback. Another team that's shockingly bad right now, Clover, is Gas Cans. They have a lot of time in sort of upper level play, but maybe not the same international experience. Can they bounce back?
I think so. I think that some of the circles that we've had especially have been in kind of areas where we don't usually see some of these teams get as much playtime. I mean, the last Erangel circle, that was a good circle for Shoot to Kill. But given especially where gas cans have been dropping, kind of taking those south rotations coming up, it can catch them off guard a bit, especially as they've been rotating into some teams. We found them really entering into busy parts of the circle. I mean, I talked to Roth before the games today, and I asked him, what are you looking for? What are you preparing for? And he told me you can't necessarily prepare for everything because you've really got to be prepared for what the circle throws at you. PUBG is like a game of chess, and you're really trying to think ahead of the zone. And so I think that was definitely a factor for some of these teams today. Another factor might have been overconfidence in some fights. I mean, we saw Roth take a car, not one, but 2 different games on phase 1 right at the drop. And one of those did not work out so well. So I really kind of want to see what they'll take from today and learn from for tomorrow.
All right, well, you heard it. Roth apparently not a Boy Scout, not always prepared. But we'll see if they bounce back. Everybody's got a lot, or they don't have to bounce back. Actually, they do. They got a lot ahead of them. Sorry, got distracted there for a second. All right, final thoughts. I love it. We're not just going to sign out without getting your guys' moment here to tell me exactly what you loved, what you're expecting, what you want to see tomorrow, whatever. The floor is yours. Cameron?
We again, this was sort of the moment of like Latin America, they've been getting better. How are they going to face off against NA full time? Because DreamHack Winter was a little bit of a taste, but we want like double that action. We want even more of that. And they've certainly delivered. However, we still have 3 North American teams at the top, but that doesn't mean that we can continue to count out the teams like Akreche, 22, or even Enrage.
I agree 100%. I've loved seeing the emergence of LATAM since the disappearance of Secret. What's your final thought there, Clover?
I mean, I agree with Cam there. This is probably the strongest lobby that we've ever had in an Americas event. There's no team where you can sit there and go, that team's feeding, that team maybe doesn't really deserve to be here. And that might be why there is such a huge shakeup on the leaderboards, because every strong team has met their match in some way thus far. So I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out in the long term.
It's a great point. No one on the leaderboard you look at and go, these are feeders, because the 2 teams that are literally like 8 or less points, we know that they know how to play this game. Sorry, Alex. We know they know how to play. So that means that tomorrow, anything could happen. It's going to be tons of fun. That is PUBG in a nutshell. So make sure you guys come back for that. And I want to also tell you, if you love PUBG as much as we do, if watching the ESL PUBG Masters is hyping you up, then the next announcement is just for you. PCS4, the Americas qualifiers. Registration is now open. Yeah, it's open right now. Sign up now to secure a chance to secure a piece of $250,000 in prizes. Qualifiers start May 5th. My birthday is 2 days after that. You signing up and winning would be a birthday gift for me. I would consider it that. So get there, play some games. I love seeing new talent come out of nowhere. You're the next big PUBG. I believe in you. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. From myself, from Cameron, from Clover, Matchroom, Godspeed, and all of the team here, we love having you, and we can't wait to see you tomorrow. But until we do, play more PUBG.